Oh, hey. There we go. Now we got audio. I was so worried about the camera not coming in right that I forgot to turn my mic on. Yeah, I was saying I'm fully aware of the orange cord in the corner. That's for my GoPro, and I kind of ran out of time to cable route a little better. But that's the camera I have to use for the interview because I can't run the Canon and two apps at the same time, if you think about it. So, yeah, say what's up to everybody. What is up, Large? Rick, Pudgy. Um, Oh, why? Yeah, Pudgy. I wonder why you don't have your green factory. It still has you listed as a member. So yeah. What's up, JMZ? Glad you're back again. Uh, Malk, good to see you. It's been a while. I guess I'll see you at least in person briefly when you come to town on Saturday. Rick, Blackball. Yeah, Dylan, Chris. Yeah, got a good group tonight. Farley, how's everyone doing? Oh yeah, I wanted to show this real quick. Thanks, Rick. Thanks for the update. Uh, Greg from I think it was Portland. I forgot to bring the envelope down here. I just brought his note. Sent me this cool. Come on, man. My camera's gonna give me fits tonight, huh? Yeah, like a Grateful Dead logo, but with the bike in it. Man, no luck. Now I'm getting audio from my YouTube. I'll try and figure that out. Well, let's try and figure out this first. Go manual focus. Can't deal with. See how that is. Nope, too far. It's not easy to manually focus a camera on yourself. That'll have to do. I'll be using the other camera anyways for most of the show. So yeah. Green Factory foreclosed. Hey, what's up, Big Nate? Uh, yeah, cool sticker, right? So thanks, Greg, for that. Tonight I'm drinking. Well, yeah, I've got it on manual focus. That won't work. Beer from Outer Belt Brewing. It's called Gravel Donuts, so the name is pretty appropriate. It's their New England India Pale Ale. I will pour this, and then I think we will bring the co-host in. Oh yeah, that's good. Outer Belt Brewing has been recommended to us. They're in a town in Ohio. In Ohio, I've never even heard of Carroll, Ohio. If anyone's familiar with that, but everyone's been telling us to get down there. But they actually had it at Giant Eagle. You think the orange cable's throwing off my focus? Throwing off everything. No audio. Right. You guys see the. Oh, I missed your comment back there. You guys see the blurriness, right? That's not the worst start ever, Rick. I've started worse with nothing working. So, yeah. Anyways, well, I'll see how many times I accidentally call because in my mind, every time I'm about to say it, instead of, and my mic is also, well, before I get to that, my mic is also electrical taped to the stand because my mic broke. So that's on top of everything. I got to like not touch that because then my mic will fall onto the desk and then we really have no audio. Anyways, so gonna introduce party size cycling, and I'm sure if I have two beers, I'll start calling them party pace cycling because that's my mind always reverts to pathless pedaled and my party pace stickers and patches I bought from him. But yeah, so he's from New Jersey. I'll bring him in though, and I'll let him introduce himself because well, I will just have the conversation. No reason to explain it all away. So let me see if I could do this right now. So I know I have myself muted on here, so let me unmute myself. And where is that? Oh, I need to make you full screen. Let's get in there. There we go. All right. You guys will have to let us know audio wise how we're doing. I think. Oh, I have desktop audio off. Now that's on. All right. So, party size cycling. I got to say, I actually don't even know your real name.
It is Andrew Schneider,
Oh, Andrew. All right. Everyone is screen names, so I always stick to screen names. So, should I?
right? I feel like that's all Nutmeg was just like, hey, you screen name person.
Yeah. When we first we did a meetup ride last spring after I had done the streams over a year, and that's what happened when we were meeting each other. Everyone's like, all the regulars on the chat had to be like, Jay Dandy, my name's, and then like so, yeah, same exact thing.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I was thinking we did a little test, and I was saying we met because of Nutmeg, but we didn't meet at Nutmeg. Did we meet through Instagram, or did you find the YouTube video?
Then Pudgy shared your video to me, and then I think from there I ended up following you, and then saw these and just started hopping on, and um, yeah. So then I think it's awesome what you do, and I really enjoyed like oftentimes if I'm working late, especially just to throw this on over on the side screen and like have somebody to like feel like I'm hanging out with
Yeah.
while I'm working.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
While
Yeah,
making memes.
yeah, because when you shared, whenever we started following and whatever on Instagram, then I started checking out your swag, and I was like, the only steel is real stuff I absolutely love because, that's kind of my MO. My aluminum bike only sits on the trainer now, and my only other non-steel bike, well, I guess I do have a vintage carbon bike, but I've never ridden it. It's probably pretty sketchy. But my only other aluminum bike is my winter kind of beater now. So yeah, I really dig the stickers. And then I know Patrick, who's in here, he has one of your caps too, as well. That's what I was
Yeah.
curious. With your swag, is that something with you started doing just because you had some cool ideas and you wanted to put something out there? Or
Yeah, I mean, so I, came up through punk and hardcore and metal and all that stuff, and so I was always could never play anything, so I always ended up being like merch man for my friends' bands. Um, and especially started to see that like even if you don't necessarily have artistic talent, like they would the one band would pay Alexander Ayer, who's an amazing artist, $100 and he'd do a T-shirt for them. So sort of like just like it's always been in the back of my head, and even from in high school, I think my friend's ska band was very easy because it was ska, so we could just do a checkerboard logo. And like we went to like Walmart, bought white T-shirts and spray paint, and just made shirts and stood on top of my van at one of their shows and like sold them off the top of the van. And so like merch has always been in my blood. So when we started this, it was very much, as soon as anybody started paying attention to what I was doing, it was one of the first things I immediately wanted to do. And I have to give a huge, huge, huge shout out to my friend John Pish, ex Johnny 99, while we're doing the screen name things. I don't know if he's on,
hmm.
but so me linking up with him, he's a graphic designer. He like if you ever go into Target, he designs lots of things, but like that section with like the dollar and $2 things, like right when you walk in, like he designs all the product packaging for that and stuff like that.
Oh wow, yeah.
So we got hooked up. We lived in the same town for a while and didn't really know each other. Finally, when we did, he, did up a logo. And then we both really love cycling caps. So the cycling caps came really quick. I had originally reached out to Mitchie to do that Steel Only Steel's Real one. To do just the main logo, but John had already done it. So then I ended up hooking up with him. So like just long story short, I've always kind of hung around artistic people, but never really had the chops to do it. And this has really been one of my first experiences to have an excuse to like make stuff and actually be able to like break even and just get things that I really think are cool and I want to wear or I want for my life, and not have to, pay to have somebody make it one off, which is really all I'm trying to do is just get cool stuff for myself. I'll be very honest.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny to hear you say that because same thing. Just having friends who are graphic designers, like my friend Micah had the Grav idea, and then I worked with them to like kind of finalize it, and it was like, yeah, I've got a little bit of an audience, so if we could make some of these and we could have them too, and then whoever else wants them, as long as
Yeah.
it breaks kind of even. I'm trying to resize this so I could pull up some of your merch here in the background, so it makes sense while we're talking about it. I just got to find the right window since I have to use 5 browsers to run us. And oh, there we go. I just saw you just posted a new one today. Let me see if I click
Yeah.
it if that, and I could resize this down. I think. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, this is your hazy logo. Yeah.
Yeah, this actually was in the original crop of logos that John was kind of brought up. He never actually showed me this one. And then once he showed me the other one, the low and slow with the skull, like and the chill hat, that we immediately both realized was the way to go. But like this was actually in his original like kind of just brainstorming. Um, and I saw it one day and I was like, let's do that. That thing looks awesome. And yeah, so whether it's hazy, I'm a big hazy IPA guy. And so I was like, oh yeah, this we could do something with this.
Yeah, yeah. I'm drinking a hazy right now. Rick said we
So,
have dueling basements going on as well. So, oh, so
you
they said your level is mega loud and mine is quiet. So let me try and level us out here. I'll do it. So
got it.
yeah, got it. Oh, we're already getting trolls in here. Oh, man, I'm getting famous when I'm getting trolls. Try and look at see. I know uh, Pudgy just said that you guys met at the COVID nutmeg. So
Yeah, we actually really didn't talk. We were on the same boat, and actually, I have the picture. I can pull it up. So he snapped a picture, and then somehow through like sharing stuff, it got like I came across it, and then that's the first time then Pudgy got on my radar, and then this year we actually got to meet and hang out a little bit. So I just pulled it up. I don't know if you can
yeah, I will
share
here.
that, but
Yeah, if I could remember what to click. Here we go. Yep.
unbeknownst to me, um, I was just sitting there talking to Josh, who I just met that day. I believe we were negotiating the sale of a hammock right there, which I ended up buying from him later in town. But I think that's your friend Brian, right on the right hand side, I think, and that's who he was actually trying to take the picture of, but inadvertently like started this weird nutmeg connection that is now 2 years running and ended up with you and myself on the live stream.
Oh yeah, nice. That's I was with Nutmeg. It's awesome all the connections, and now that all the other people I talk to and look at their stuff, because I was looking at all the hashtags to find all the other photos and like, oh yeah, we were by that guy, and a lot of people I didn't know because like we were saying the screen name or they don't use their face in a lot of stuff. So like even the guy from Hope Cyclery, I didn't realize I was riding right
Oh
around
yeah,
him. Yeah, yeah, riding around him all day, and now I'm like, man, I wish I would have known at the time and been like, oh yeah, like I've ordered stuff from you. I have that patch on my, zeitgeist, and all that. But
I mean, our scene is not that big. I feel like you'll run into people eventually. So, the stars will align at some point on some event or ride or Philly Bike Expo or something like that. I feel like that's actually, I think, more of a better place to meet people because a lot of people are like at their booths.
yeah, I watched
Most
a
people
lot of
feel like,
videos on that. I was kind of surprised because I guess I just get ingrained in like me and my friends in the Instagram world of what we like, Aaron loves ultra dynamicos and all that kind of stuff. So I thought it was going to be this massive thing. We were worried about like being able to get tickets and thought it would sell out right away. And Pudgy kept telling me he's like, you don't need to worry. He's like, people don't. He's like, there's people who are like into stuff, but not everyone wants to go ride like crazy mileage on crazy hills in Connecticut. Like, that's
yeah,
what you guys do. Like, not everyone actually does that. So,
right.
because after like, Joe Cruz wrote his article and all that, I'm like, next year are they going to like give us an early in? Is this thing going to blow through the roof with the popularity of gravel or?
That's a good question. I mean, I don't know that any of the race people are ever going to really. I don't know because Joe's in that scene too, so like maybe that like now that that's on their radar after him giving a lot of attention, maybe I don't know. I mean, I hope for the sake of the event that it gets the credit that it deserves and they
Mhm.
can get enough people to do whatever their vision of it is, but keeping it small and so that it like I would really hate to have to like camp out at a laptop to try to snag tickets before somebody some I don't know. So it's a tricky thing. I think they're in a great spot, but also in a really tricky spot for how do you take a like really organic feeling event like there and then it's just gonna grow. I feel like this year was just like a popping off point for it.
Yeah, everything I read about it and everyone who posted something about it, I'm just like, it just seems like a lot of people are going to see this and be like, I've got to go do this, which makes sense because we're telling like all the we were talking earlier about like joy machines because I
Mm.
ran totally random connection that we were talking about, but like all those guys are like, yeah, we got to go. We're like, oh yeah, you guys would absolutely love this. And I feel like for every one of us who went home somewhere else, we're telling like 10 to 20 other people you would love this, you know. And I think they had it capped at what, 420, right?
Something, yeah, it
Yeah.
wasn't that big.
Yeah.
But I think even my group of friends, were that started doing this year, like, oh yeah, they didn't block off the weekend, and then it came and they're like, oh, I got something going on, and then I came back and like they were like, oh my god, I gotta go next year. Or our friend Sully, that went. He came. He works for like Van Moof e-bike company, and a bunch of the dudes that work in like the warehouse with him. Um, they were like afraid to go because they thought it was just hipster. They thought you had to be certain like level of cool to go. And I think he kind of came back and was like, no, you can just go. And it's just people like, yeah, there's all that. There's a lot of people that are ride cool bikes and like have cool Instagram and stuff like that. But it's just there's a lot of just regular people there too.
Yeah.
Um, I I think it's for everybody, and that's I think one of the unique things that they have going on with that event.
Yeah, and that was what's so cool because there is that vibe, and I'm sure a lot of people thought like, oh, this is going to be totally like, and I even hate the word hipster because I don't think it means anything. It's only a derogatory term, no matter what the trends are. But that's a whole other thing, punk scene as well. But you know, I I no one like there didn't seem to be any level of pretense there at all. Like I didn't meet anyone who felt like that. You know, it was just so cool. Which at the other way, it's like, man, such a hippie cool vibe, you know, or whatever. But I was really surprised by that. It was like, no, everyone wanted to see everyone else's bikes. I mean, I'll never see that.
Yeah.
I'll never see that many Rivendales and Crusts again unless I go back next year. But it's like I want to see.
The population of Rivendell owners are in that farm for a weekend.
Yeah, I think I made the joke that I think like 80% of every Crust bike that's ever been sold is at this event, you know. But I have no idea what their numbers are, but I'm sure they were up there. And then we're camping right next to what's her name? Two tents over, the woman who owns Crust. I can't. I'm totally drawing.
Shoot, yeah, Cheech.
Cheech, yeah. Whatever on
Cheech
this.
and
Uh,
yeah, but even it's funny, even when you end up meeting those people, and you have like this idea that they're only famous on that farm. Let's be honest, right? Like nowhere else in the world. But even when you met them there, like there was no like, oh, like I'm this. They were just there hanging out. Like nobody at any point, anybody you were intimidated to go up and talk to because you thought they were like this big celebrity in our scene. You know what I mean? They were like they were very just talkative and down to talk about whatever.
Yeah,
You know.
Cheech was volunteering. She signed me in. You know what I mean? So it's like everyone was, yeah, it was just that down to earth level was just so cool. I
And
wish,
hey, sorry, before we go, my friend John, who did the logo, I just saw him pop up in the thing. Hey, John, what's going on? Thanks for coming on.
yeah, I was gonna say we should see if we're. I was gonna try and read through a couple of the comments since if anyone had any questions up here, I've been slacking. I know a couple people jumped in here, like my friend Musgrave, who just started watching the channel, and I see out on the trails all the time. Jason Gates, what's up? Basement hats. Yeah, I guess we got the our stocking caps and our basements in common right now. Is that your? So I'll ask you this: is that your bike cave down there, kinda? Do you have a little corner that you set up for like bike stuff,
Yeah,
or?
yeah, bike and just in general, like all of my wrenches and just hardware stuff in general. But I have this. Our basement's kind of like bifurcated, so I have this, and then on the other side, we have a spot where I put down like a gym mat, and I mounted a TV, so that's more like where the trainer is. But this is definitely the bike mechanic-y area, um, which fortunately I'm not a N+1 person. I am very much an N=2 person.
Uh,
So I don't have a problem with like storage and things. I can pretty much keep everything down here, and just keep it out of the elements, work on it, and then I have a really painful, the difficult staircase to get up and down bikes through. So I really would not want to have a ton of bikes coming and going through here.
uh,
But so just I kind of keep it to two, and then if I get a third one, I'll maybe pick one to sell. I really try to keep it pretty tight.
yeah, interesting. I wish I could do that. Like my bikes aren't expensive. I have like my one gravel bike that I always try to keep maintained and I put money into, but then I just can't like on Craigslist I saw a Peugeot the other day and I couldn't resist it and I the guy had it for $50, and I'm like, hey, if you get 50, cool, but if you ever would take 30 for it, hit me up. It's like I can't just. I love the paint job. I couldn't help myself, but I'm like, this
Yeah.
would be a cool commuter for someone. But Patrick asked a question in here. He said, "Did you happen to meet Megan and Wade who run at HB Stash Handlebar Mustache at the Philly Expo?"
I don't know that I got a chance to meet them. Is he also the Lugs Not Drugs guy? Because I know there's a connection there, or maybe they just sell some of his designs. But no, I did not get to personally meet them. I was hanging out with like Helmet Kids and Concrete Trails, and Sully was there, and just a couple of the different bike builders there. But I did like the merch lines as a large individual. I usually don't go to like the t-shirt stands and stuff like that because it's usually a losing proposition. I just get my hopes up on things and they don't know my size. Um, so I tend to not set myself up for failure in that way.
There's a lot of nutmeg questions, but it's nice because Pudgy's pretty much handling for
I
us.
see that. Yeah, I'm sure to keep on that too.
Which day did you Which day did you go to the Philly Expo?
Just Sunday, my kid's birthday party was the day before, so I missed
Okay.
a lot of the partying and stuff like that. So I showed up fresh and bushy tailed, and everybody else was very hungover the next morning after partying all night. So next year, I'm going to really try to get there for the whole weekend. I'm only an hour north of Philly,
Yeah, I was looking
so
at
it's really
Hyper.
probably good.
Yeah, because I was wondering because Rick Urbanowski, who's in Philly, I went out there and rode with him. He went on Sunday too, but then I saw Terry. Do you follow Terry Berenson at all? He's a
No,
slightly popular, uh, yeah, pretty popular cycling YouTuber in New York, and he was there. He was Twitch streaming it actually on Saturday, and I was getting ready for my ride, so I got a really good overview of what the expo looked like as he walked around. And he was like,
yeah,
"I'm not going to stop for anyone. I'm going to go back and say hi to everybody, but I want to give you guys an overview." I'm like, "Yes," because I'm going to ride in like 20 minutes, so I did get to see what it looked like. But yeah, he was like
yeah.
he's one of those dudes who was
Expo
like
is
a.
more about the hangs,
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
personally. Like, no, I was just saying, Philly Bike Expo, I think, is more about the hangs than it is about like the booths per se. If you're really into bike builds, there's a lot of beautiful builds. That's not. I'm more about just like having fun and riding. I don't get hung up on like the builds and things like that. So for me, it's a little underwhelming on that regards. But like the parties and the hangs and stuff like that is more what I would be interested there.
So is it after like the actual hours of the expo, people are meeting up and having rides and events and stuff like that, or?
Yeah, like Keystone Bikes has a big party, and there's just like different bike shops in town will do stuff, and then there's Airbnbs that there's parties at and things like that. So it's
Ah,
not
awesome.
that that's all about parties, but it's definitely nice to you know drink a couple and hang out. And like the at the Keystone Bike one, they were doing mini bike races around their parking lot, so they had like people on like these little tiny little bikes doing trying to ride through all these like cars and things like that. It was really cool.
Yeah, yeah, that's I wouldn't have a problem like walking around the show and seeing all the cool stuff, but yeah, that's what I would be there for too. I mean, like even at
Yeah.
Nutmeg, I loved like the little like the garage sale, and I bought a saddle and a couple little pieces parts, and that stuff's fun. But it was like, yeah, the
Mhm.
fires and the bike ride, and that really make an event like that, like any event, you're just getting a bunch of like-minded people in one spot.
Yep.
Does Philly
That's it.
bike? Oh, go ahead.
No, that's good.
Do they do the big brands even do they come to Philly, or was it mostly?
Yeah, there was a Trek thing. I didn't see Specialized. So there was some of that, but I don't. I think they kind of actually. So when you first walk in, they have a lot of like big areas, but I'll be honest, I didn't see a lot of people over in that area. Mostly then like the very back row was like Crust, Ultra Dynamico, Ronnie's Table. Um, I'm blanking on like five of the other names, but it was like everybody that you wanted to see was kind of in one row. So it was really cool. Like
Yeah.
if you weren't doing anything or there wasn't something you wanted to go see, like you kind of just stood in the back that back corner and like people would just congregate around there to hang out.
I did see someone asked like about how you sign up for Nutmeg and what it happens. It's like what at some point on is it Ron's Bikes? He uses his Ron's Bikes Instagram account. He just says he starts to put up a couple posts late summer that the website will end up going up. It's not like other things, It's
Yeah, I
kind.
defer to Pudgy about previous. 'Cause I mean, the COVID year was the first year that I went, But that year was just it was a Google sheet. You just went onto a Google sheet and said I'm going, and they emailed you the routes, and that was it. I
Mm.
think that was a weird one because it was completely self-support. So imagine doing that route fully loaded. It was
Yeah.
a lot of crying in the woods. Let's put it
Yeah,
there.
this
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say some of those. There were times where me and my one friend Funny Brad were kind of riding together, and there was some like really cool single track, and there were definitely people like pulling off to the side, and we're like coming through, because we wanted to hit it. But there were, and I don't know what you. I did the 40ish one.
Yeah, maybe they figure out.
There were parts that were just I'm like, this is not. They were definitely unrideable. I don't know anyone who could have gotten a bike up or down a couple of these. I mean, it wasn't a ton of hike a bike, but there was definitely some some gnarly stuff on that route. And I've heard like, from like Abe and a couple other people how there was like on the long route there was like insane stuff. So
Oh yeah, I can't imagine.
and
And that one guy did it on like I know you had a whole episode about that one, but that I'm still just amazed that one dude that did it on a single track, a track bike basically, and did the 60. I just can't comprehend that. I don't have any sort of reference point for how in shape you have to be to do that, or just bike, like you said, it's bike handling skills. I
yeah.
feel like knowing that from doing it last year came into it. I was less surprised by that and focused. I'm like, there's this route that John and I do a bunch of times, like called Capelong Creek, which is very rocky and rutted, and like really tests your kind of bike handling skills in a fairly safe way because there's no steep ups or downs. So if you fall, you're just falling over, which I've done.
Yeah.
Um, but it's not like you're going to take a fall and then like go tumbling down the side of a mountain.
Yeah.
Which I've done some of those routes on, this Surly this trucker here, and that has been terrifying. With semi slick tires and things like that, trying to do that stuff. But just we knowing that prepared over the whole year to go into that, and then felt like this year I really didn't walk too much of it. Just like maybe that stuff that was basically like a staircase
Mm.
coming down some of those, and walked a bunch of the hills just because I'm fat. Like, just being honest. But I did it. Did the whole thing. It was great.
Malk asked if
I saw somebody had
okay.
asked though about the shirt. So this is a water bottle makes this shirt. So this is as closest to Rafa gear as I can get with my size.
Mm.
So they have 3XL shirts. It's BODL.
Huh, BODO. Yeah, it's funny with Rafa because it's like I feel like I'm someone that it would be made for, and I've ordered it in like what I would think is my size, and then I've had to send it back and get the extra large, and it's like, dude, I'm like 6'1", and I would say fairly skinny, But yeah, especially their pro line don't even. I mean, I don't. You have to be a Colombian mountain climber to wear their pro like stuff
Yeah,
in
I
normal.
mean, on those people, it looks amazing. Like I wish I looked like that in a kid, but I don't. So I typically don't ride in kid. I usually ride in just button-up shirts and shorts.
Yeah, I own very little real kit. I have some Rafa pants, which are like their commuter style, and their wind jacket, which is commuter style. But again, I think I ordered two sizes up from what I would have got in some normal, brand like Chrome or someone who actually makes
Yeah.
stuff for real people. But yeah, there was another question I was. Oh, someone asked if anyone how many mountain bikes were out at Nutmeg, and it was very little. I mean, there was the current trend of turning mountain bikes into gravel bikes, like vintage mountain, like rock hoppers and stuff like that. But a lot of people were way underbiked. Like there were a lot of people on their Rivendales who had
Mhm.
Rivendales with like 32s or 35s, which I had 42s, and that's about the minimum I would have wanted on most of that out there. Wouldn't you say? Did you see anyone? I didn't see many pure mountain bikes. I don't think.
No, I talk about fat bikes, but not a lot of mountain bikes at all.
Wait, Rick just said we're gonna talk. Wow. Wait, he's speaking from experience, so it's probably not offensive. But he said we're gonna talk about being fat and riding bikes, or what? So,
I mean, that's what I'm here for. I'll be very honest.
yeah,
Let's ask whatever you want.
yeah. And then he said later, he said I'm always worried about having a bike and components that won't handle his weight. So,
Yeah. No, it's a real concern. So I don't touch anything carbon. I don't own a single piece of carbon fiber in my house. Uh, everything is and that so steel is important to me for a couple of reasons. So I mean, one, it can handle my weight. I'm 300 pounds, pretty much, plus or minus, and and I ride, semi rugged stuff. So you have to pick a bike that and components that are going to do it. So far, I've been very lucky. Surly is, I mean, you can't go wrong there. This thing's held up. I put this thing through a lot. I've only had the Rockhopper running for like maybe the last month and a half, and been very impressed with how that's handling. And I really haven't had any issues from that. But like, other just normal road bikes and things like that, like just it's not an option. So I just don't even try.
Yeah, I was. So yeah, you have the Surly, which yeah, Surleys are kind of like that's even. Isn't that one even kind of built as like a touring bike? So it's kind of even overbuilt, right? There we go. And
Yeah, it definitely is, and it's built to handle weight not just from the rider but from bags. Because
yeah,
as a larger person, then that also does touring or bikepacking sometimes not as much as I'd like to, but I have to account for all the extra weight of my gear too. So that puts me over the weight limit for pretty much any not steel bike out there. So this, yeah, I have it fairly upright. So I have a riser stem and some other things just because I have to keep myself fairly a little bit more upright so I don't have interference like my gut and things like that. Um, and it's harder for me to like hold that like super aero position. So whatever bike I get, I try to not as much as Rick. I've seen some of Rick's bikes.
yeah. That's always the
Um,
joke. Yeah.
yeah, but certainly more upright than I'm sure most people would ride, and it's just something I've learned that works a lot better for me. Maybe I'll lose a couple watts off of the top end, but overall it gets me to a point where I can ride all day.
Yeah. And so with the rock hopper, did you say that's a rock hopper?
Yeah, this is a 1993 Rockhopper
Oh, a
that I
93.
bought
Nice.
from the original owner over the summer, and just kind of got it working. So I've been riding it for a little while, finding out what I didn't and did like about it, and I'm about to completely tear it down and switch over to one by as soon as these brake levers come in.
Oh, so right now is it a fairly original build still or?
Yeah, yeah, it's very much so. I switched out. I put a full stem adapter onto it, and then put the somewhat clearance bars, give it a little bit of sweep back because it was a size too big for me.
Hmm.
So to kind of ride it in more of like a road bike and not like a mountain bike sort of position, um, this worked out really well because I was able to kind of like drop it down and pull it back a little bit from where it was originally set up with their full stem, which is you can't do anything with. It's just one solid piece.
Yeah.
And then I switched up pedals. Maybe watches my Instagram. I spray painted some stuff to get it matchy matchy, and yeah. But so I just got gonna switch over to one by cinch drivetrain. Hopefully this weekend.
Oh, nice. Do you, what did you? I missed what you called the one by what kind of drivetrain?
Cinch. It's like the race face thing. So it's instead of so like a BCD, it's like it direct mounts to the bracket.
Ah,
I'll be very honest. I'm doing this entire build. I got a absolute black oval chainring, which I really wanted to try for a long time, and I got it online for a very good deal. And I'm building the rest of the drivetrain around that. So it's probably cost me significantly more money to get those specific parts that work with that system. That would have been to just buy like a regular 104 black absolute black chainring, but at this point, I'm committed to it. So
yeah.
we went down the hole.
I always feel like I would have more money for like the bling if I would stop messing around with all these other bikes. It's like, man, and it's not always bling, it's cool stuff, like or even functional, but I'm like again, I'm like trying to drive out to buy some vintage Peugeot that I don't need and I'm like I should be saving that money for like the bike I ride all the time, but
Yeah,
see what else
my
it,
wife's a bit of a penny pincher, so she keeps me in line pretty good. Not to slag her.
yeah.
it's a good thing.
Yeah. I
You see, mine. There's somebody in town that was selling a Yeti downhill bike, and I was like, I've never had a downhill bike, and that's one of the best ones. It's $5,000 used, but she was like, you don't need that much right
yeah. I was I can't remember what bike it was. Oh, I have an old Jeton World Tour de France, and some guy had it on Craigslist for 350, and I'm like, I don't have 350, so I'm like, I could lowball this guy because I don't need this bike, so I'm like, offer half, and he's like, yeah, I'll take it, and so then I'm talking to my girlfriend there, and she's like, "Oh, where are you at?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm at Great Northern Mall." She's like, "What are you doing at the mall?" I'm like, "Well, I'm meeting a guy in the parking lot to buy a bicycle." Whatever. you know?
It goes, a couple different ways. So my buddy, keep bringing up John. He's, me and him are very simpatico with some bike stuff, but we differ enough that it keeps it interesting. But he's very good at cranking out kind of restos. So he will hawk Facebook Messenger or Facebook Marketplace on that Facebook. So I think that's
Yeah.
what it's called.
Yeah,
But
marketplace. Yeah.
yeah, and like he's always gonna like pick this up for $100 and then takes it home, cleans it up, gets a couple of swaps out. But he's more about keeping it kind of as is, or maybe doing like a single speed switch out or something like that. Where I'm more about like when I get these, I want to tear them apart and like build them back up the way I want them, not necessarily keep to the original vision of them.
Yeah. When I started, I used to think everything had to stay original, and then I realized some old stuff sucks. And the guy at the bike shop down the street, and I still run over there sometimes. They're just like your typical old school bike shop. But when I need like, say, I need a cable housing or something real quick when I'm working on that, he was like, I remember he told me with my Peugeot, like the derailleur, the old Simplex derailleur was trashed, and he was like, every cheap new Shimano rear derailleur is better than every single derailleur before 1984.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're right. And sometimes some things are about looks. You have a bike that you care about you want something that kind of looks right on it. But if you want something to be functional, like the original stuff, finally I got past that mode of, and that's why I do like, it's like my Trek bike that I toured on. It's an old '82 Trek 500. I have 9 speed 105 with drifters. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It still looks cool enough, and it's so much more functional. There was a question in here about uh, someone said he's a big guy over 240, and he was asking
Yeah.
about saddles.
Sure. So I on this one, this was one I very much like and would recommend. It's the Ciencia by Cell Royal or Cella Royal. I always forget how to say it. But it's a pretty interesting series in that the saddle has 9 different saddles. So basically, it's a matrix of width and then riding position. So you can get one that's the smaller sit bones aggressive riding position, or smaller sit bones upright riding position, or moderate. Or in my case, right? So I went moderate with the really wide. I have 155 sit bones. So that's a first. First thing, let me back up. For anybody large that's looking at saddles, ignore what everyone says about this one works for me. This go get your sit bones measured because most of the time that simply getting the right width saddle has so much more to do than getting the right padding or all the other things. So once I got keyed into that, every saddle that I bought now that's at that right width, the 155. Some of them I'll prefer not, but I have not had problems with them or had issues with them. Now I will say that there's some where there's a published weight limit, like Ergon. I would love to recommend them because I did like a test ride on them and they're amazing feeling. But they specifically on the product say like only good up to like 220 pounds or something like that. So
Hmm.
not gonna risk it. Like if it was like if I was really close to the weight limit, I'd do it. But not that. I'd be curious. The Rick likes the B17. I had the C. I'm vegan, so the B has I've kind of steered away from.
Hmm.
But I did not like the C series at all. I tried them. Just felt like you're either on the rivets or like the hammock thing that's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
I would end up like pushing the hammock down too far, and I could actually feel sometimes like the bolts or the rails a little bit too much. And then if you sat back more, I'd be on the rivets, and then you were dealing with all sorts of like chafing there. So I really can't recommend that as a big person. I just got on this one. I put on the Specialized Comp Power, which they now make. They used to not make it in a 155, but they do now. And I've only done 2 longer rides on it, but so far I actually like this more than I like the um, Ciencia, to be honest. But the Ciencia, I feel like is a better recommendation for all around because you can really dial it into your specific riding position, find out what works for you, and then you can always try other saddles. But like this is a really good core saddle, I feel like.
The width thing is interesting because I haven't thought about it as much. I've just found what works for me, and then I'm like, but I've always known like you can't recommend saddles to other people,
No.
because we've had the seeds, the cambiums. Like I know people who have, it seems, are more divided on those than they are outside of vegan issues. Just say that's not like a typical B17 or leather saddles. Otis has given me one for like $40 because he rode it twice, and he's like I couldn't ride my bike for 2 weeks after riding that saddle. I rode it the first time, I already liked it. Then once I did cross that like mythical 600 miles, it just really did settle in even better. And now it's like, to me, a dream. It's like, so the width thing is interesting because that sounds like that it actually is a metric that plays a role, but the other stuff is so personal. I just don't
Yeah.
think you
Oh,
could.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But if you're starting off with a saddle that's not already not going to support your sit bones, and to be honest, you might be a larger person that doesn't have larger sit bones, so you might be buying a saddle that's designed for a big person, but it's not going to support you correctly because it's going to end up having your sit bones not kind of where it's supposed to be. So really, go to your local bike shop. Most of them, any Ergon dealer for sure, but Bontrager I know has like a little pad that you can sit on. So any Trek dealer, unfortunately, I don't just not a big Trek fan, sorry,
Yeah.
but
Well, I mean, like
the,
what the cop thing and everything. Yeah.
the business practice is like another conversation. I'm not going to air dirty laundry, but yeah.
Yeah. We do that after
But
10 o'clock when we're real drunk. But yeah.
yes, exactly. Most good bike shops will like, even if you don't buy a saddle from them, if you have a good relationship with the bike shop, just ask them, can you measure my sit bones? Most of them have some sort of pad that you can sit on or to do it. I would avoid doing it yourself. It's pretty hard to do it. Like I've seen some of the things that they recommend with like foil and stuff like that, but I've never gotten good results from it.
Hmm. Yeah, and I know there are like even both all the local bike shops I go into also have a bunch of um, what's the right word, test saddles. Like they'll throw something on a bike for you to at least try it and see if you seems to feel good. The problem with that too is for people who don't ride bikes a lot, they always like the biggest cushiest thing out there, but that's a big detriment to your cycling later on. To sit on a big old cushiony saddle feels great for 5 minutes, but if you're not a regular cyclist, that's the worst thing you can do.
Yeah, I know you're gonna get chafing and all that good stuff. I wish we were in a more of a rural area. We can talk about hybrids at some point, but like we're just pretty rural. There's not a lot of like saddle trial programs at bike shops out
Mm.
here, which is unfortunate, just because none of them are really big enough. Be curious if Rick has any recommendations maybe done his way, but none of my local ones offered him.
I see Patrick was saying Cell Anatomica has a vegan saddle. Huh. And then he said he's been trying out one of their H2s, which is not vegan, but he said he still prefers the Brooks B's and the C's so far. So, hey, what's up, Alejandro?
I mean, I think Grant Peterson, I'm the Just Ride book. I think he mentions like the average. The most people go through 4 saddles before you find like your saddle. I think I'm on number like 5 or 6, but I still down the one. But you just gotta keep trying. I mean, but you gotta also make sure you give them enough time to break in and go from there. But just look for weight limits too. If you're not sure, contact them. Most of them will tell you if they have one. It's not something like, no offense to him, but I doubt that's something you've ever had to worry about. But for larger people, it is. And make sure you get something that's not going to fail on you. And it's not even about like liability or warranty or anything like that. It's really just like if somebody's telling you that this is only designed for a person of this size and you're not, that thing's going to wear out. You're going to start like having issues with metal bending and stuff like. Why would you want to put yourself through that? Find a company that supports larger riders and support them.
Couple things here. Pudgy said demo saddle, which is the word I was looking for. Rick says, how can you afford a bike with New Jersey taxes? Traveling through, Musgrave, well, he changed his name to Muskrat because that's what everyone called him when we were younger. But he said, do you wax and wash your bike in the basement? And that's what my last video was. But then traveling through also asked, do you wax your chain? So,
I do not wax my chain. I do clean my bike. Down here, I keep a pack of rags over here that I'll watch them every once in a while. But I use muck off spray a little bit, and then spray the rag, and then wipe it down, and then every once in a while, I'll just vacuum up down here with a shop vac, and that's been fine. I mean, I was always taught not to really use your hose to wash your bike anyway. So yeah, I do wash my bike down here. I don't wax my chain though. It's something I've been interested in, but I like John got me hooked on rock and roll gold, and that's what I've been rocking, and that was way better. I was a tri-flow person forever,
Hmm.
and then he got me to try that, and I'm convinced. John's chain is always immaculate, by the way. If you ever ride with him, you show up and everybody comments on like, dude, how did you get your chain so? um, and we were having more people than just John, but he comes up pretty often here. Sorry.
Yeah. That's that's interesting. I Triflow is my go-to, but just being friends with Otis, like he bought out like an old racy bike shop, so he gave me some like high-end muck off that I've been using. And then he sometimes gets some demo stuff, so I'll try whatever. I haven't. There's a couple of things. There was one that was supposed to be super like, God, what is that brand? Thin. It smelled really good, and I just like hated it. I felt like it was like every time I rode, I felt like it had to be reapplied. Yeah,
They have that like banana toffee scent to everything.
yeah, yeah.
I don't
But
know.
yeah, I've always been kind of. I end up hitting. Well, I mean, Northeast Ohio. It's not that different than your weather, but a lot of puddles, a lot of salt, a lot of get fairly muddy. And right now, unfortunately,
Yep.
I went to last time I washed my bike. I realized I must have went through some kind of repaving stuff, and now there's this black tar I'm gonna have to go scrape off everything. I mean, yeah. So it's yeah. I always need like it's definitely wet lube. I'm not like ever. I never have a even in the summers. It's not worth ever messing with dry lube around here. But
Yep. Even like what was it, Dumont Tech or something like that? The one that bikepacking.com. I tried that for a little bit,
yeah.
and especially I did that on the Gap and C&O, and when I tell you that stuff just like picks up all the dirt, and it was terrible. I saw a thing where there's like I wish I had remembered the guy's name, but he did a thing where he tested like every thing and puts it through some really scientific tests. Like he had a grinder machine that would like grind would you'd like pick up the lube and like run it through a wheel and then would like grind a piece of metal down and then they would actually measure the how much
Huh.
it indented it, or like how much it splattered, or like would do all this other sort of stuff to like test it. And rock and roll was number two. Muck off ceramic was number one, but that decline one, same thing. Like it finished very low, but the one thing it did do is it barely put a dent in the metal during the grind test. So in terms of like drive chain longevity, it's probably a really good option. But other than that, it's terrible. But they
Huh.
love it for some reason. Bikepack.com.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the brand that I do have some ceramic stuff of, but I don't like it because it also turns your chain black when you put it on there. Does all ceramic lube do that? I don't know if you know the answer to that question either, but
I've never tried ceramic lube, so I'm not sure. Sorry, I gotta plug my other laptop in.
all right. Let's see. I'll read some of the comments while you're doing that. A lot of wax jokes. Is your friend John? Is that terrible?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so. It's been hard to.
yeah. It
I
said,
don't know how you do it, man. To read the chat and do this.
oh, it's yeah,
I'm finding it difficult.
it's. That's why sometimes I read a comment and I'm like, I know that's a joke about something I said like 20 seconds ago, and I can't
That's good.
remember what it was. But
The delay is messing me up too.
uh, Chris Alto, hey, what's up? He said hello from Minneapolis. Rock and roll gold works well for him. Traveling through like Wolf Tooth. Ah, do they make a
I,
lube? I haven't
I
seen
don't
them.
need a loop. That's your line, Pudgy.
Hendo's demo said, "Hey, heavy rider, not familiar with Cell Atomica. What saddle do you guys recommend?" Oh, he's a roadie. We kind of went through a whole saddle thing, but I would, if you want to say the saddle you were just mentioning, I
Cell Royal, the Ciencia series, and like I said, it's like a matrix where you pick your riding position and your main riding position and your width, and it kind of dials it in. So there's nine different saddles in that line, so you can really find one that's very customized to you. I've had very little complaints with that one.
oh, I think the lube I was just thinking of is something like Finish Line, Finish something, and
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
it has two negatives going for it. It one it turns your chain black, which I just don't like, but not that big of a deal. That's aesthetic. The other thing is it separates. So when it's sitting here, I always have to sit here, and it's really hard to remix. Like I'm seriously like have to shake it for forever, and it's like since I'm already invested and it's there once in a while, if I'm in the mood, I'll like use it. But usually I just go back to my TriFlow or that free thing of muck off I got. But yeah.
Hey, give me 1 second. Sorry again. The I think this power strip on the side is dead because both my laptops are dying here. So
Well, why don't we
give me one.
let's go to the break because I could grab another beer, and then
Oh,
that's about 2 minutes, so you can plug everything in, and then we'll be back in a
that's
second.
perfect.
Yep.
Okay. See you in a minute.
Musgrave, I forgot to put your name in this list, but I do appreciate you. He is the latest member of the channel. I just want to take a quick moment during this break to thank our channel members. Their financial support really does make it possible to do this many live streams and produce this many videos. So thanks a lot. If you're interested in joining, we could drop a link on the screen in the chat right now that you could check out and follow that link and join the channel and get some special perks too. Anyways, thanks to everybody else too for tuning in. I really enjoyed doing this. Check out the merch store and also drop a like on this video. Thanks, every little bit helps. We will be back in a couple minutes. I want a tuna boat. Give me tuna boat. I want a tuna boat. Give me tuna boat. Hey, what's up? We're back. Let me try and get these audio levels. I turned them off back to where they need to be. Um, so yeah, I want to drop a link to your store in here if anyone's interested in your swag.
Oh, thanks. Appreciate it. Also, fun fact, good transition here. Promo code TunaBoat will get you free shipping through the end of the month. So thanks for hopping on and uh, checking this live stream out.
Nice. I'm
It
glad.
fits for the Fitz fam.
It's nice that big because your store is Big Cartel, right? That's what's
Yeah.
yeah. I can't find a way. I'm using Squarespace because that's where I have a photography portfolio, which Squarespace is great for. I
Yeah.
can't find a way to have like specific discount codes like that. They have like only broad sales, like a sale for everything. They don't have
Oh,
like,
weird.
so that was kind of frustrating because I wanted for like channel members and stuff. And so now I just have to be like, hey, I promise I'll refund you this amount of money, which is not ideal at
Oh,
all.
yeah, okay. I was wondering, Dave. I heard you mention that a few times. Okay.
Yeah, that's
Um,
why. Yeah. It's,
Big Cartel has its own problems, but that is not one of them.
hmm. Yeah, because I'm trying to think of who Erin used because she made some Bike Akron water bottles and she was able to do that too. She was like, hey, friends, put this in. Or even like if some people she wanted to give them to for free, but can keep,
Yeah.
still keep inventory, she was able to put in codes and all that. So for
Yeah,
anyone,
same. I've done that for people too. Like, hey, here, just give this to you. Just put this code in so that I can at least do the shipping. Because I have like some integrations. I've helped Roach Clips and a few other people. I feel like that's one of the things that I got good at, and it's part of my like normal job, but just operations. So the other day I was able to like pack and ship 50 shirts in under an hour and a half. So that's definitely been something I feel like I've gotten. I'm trying to help other people. So if anybody needs help with their sort of like shipping situation, let me know. Happy to help.
yeah, if anyone doesn't know too, so it's great that you guys connected. So Woody Roach Clips is Woody's like one of my like since I got back into cycling, like one of the
Mhm.
people I started riding with like earliest. That's how I met Large Marge and all that stuff. Like our Wednesday night rides, which are still ongoing. And then he has his Roach Clips business, which is like Roach Clips for your valve cap Roach Clips, and then also like dice and some
Yeah.
merch and apparel. I'm curious actually. How did you just find that through Instagram or someone sharing or?
Probably somebody sharing it on Instagram, and then um, like I'm in a lot of conference calls at work, so I talk a lot to people on Instagram, or I'm always DMing people, or people, if you DM me, I'll be happy to talk with whoever messages me. So we just started talking one day, and I think I ordered the caps, and I was like, oh man, like $5, those little caps. Like I wasn't trying to be a jerk. I was just like, oh man, like you're getting overcharged for shipping if it costs you $5 to ship those caps. And then so I got him turned on to some tools and stuff like that. So I was able to help him out, get
Uh,
his stuff set up. So
yeah, it's awesome because he actually. I had DM'd you when I saw you had shared, you'd either shared or said something, and then he
yeah,
messaged me when I shared something about you. He was like, "I was chatting with that dude." I'm like, "Yeah, like I know if they're not," and just it's like that small world
yeah,
of like I think this scene is massive, and then you realize it's not as
it's
big as you
not.
think.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's just
and I respect what he does too because he's actually producing a product. Like I'm just taking artwork and slapping it on stuff. He's actually in his garage making something and selling it.
yeah.
And I respect that
I
incredibly.
So do I. I keep thinking I keep trying to think of what is that item that I could like that is like filling a gap and I'm like until I have that idea, I'm not going to put out something that's not necessary, but
Yeah,
I was joking with the lanky cyclist who's another YouTuber who's also
yeah,
lives in my area if you've talked to him. But we do keep joking about how stupid my Wahoos look on my vintage bikes when I mount them. I'm like, I need to come out with a chromed out Wahoo mount that makes sure like Wahoo fit in better on like a vintage bike. But
I, I have my wife's cousin like teaches machining and things like that. So if just waiting to have that like magical moment where I have the idea for the thing because I have like a whole person who does prototypes and does all that stuff. So like as soon as I can come up with an idea, I have somebody to do it. I just have yet to have that like eureka moment.
Large Marge, I think, said the same thing. I think it's one of his brothers who is, and his brother's not in cycling, but is a machinist, and he's always looking for that moment. So I think me and Ben Large Marge were riding once, and he was talking about that. He's like, "Got a guy," and I'm like, because I was saying I do photography for this place, CF Extrusion, and they have all the CNC machines, and I'm like, man, they would trade me so easily if they made me 200 knickknacks that
Right
would make someone's life easier. I see Aaron jumped in here. Oh,
there.
she's using Square. That's where. So
Okay. So which I thought was part of Squarespace, but I recently found out it's not because the
yeah,
local coffee shop I work a lot with scouts.
they integrate really well, but they're not the same company. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So speaking, somebody mentioned Highbridge Mountain Bike Park. Yes, that's the town that I live in. And speaking of the merch, there's actually I can't do free shipping. Sorry, I should have mentioned this on
Yeah.
the Flow Trail stuff. It's a fundraiser, so all that money has to go towards the fundraiser for the bike park. But yeah, we have the only the only bike park like on municipal land in New Jersey. I don't know if other states have this, but so we're a town of, as you can see on the little screen there, a whole mile. We have two like jump line mountain bike jump line dirt trail. I'm terrible at that, so I don't know how to put flow trails, I guess they call it.
Is it like pump
Um,
tracks or because
yeah, so then there's a pump track, and then we're the trailhead for 20 miles of rail trail, and there's about 9 miles of single track called Nassau Trails, all within our town. It's kind of like we like to call it Bike Town USA. I'm sure there's some other towns that could claim that, but for such per capita, I feel like we're swinging for the fences.
I have the merch up on the screen now, so
Oh
it's
yeah,
with your
yeah.
delay. But
These
yeah,
I can't discount. Sorry, I should have mentioned that because these are for fundraisers. So all of the proceeds, so literally every cent of profit is going towards getting the pump track. We're working on getting it repaved, helping them out with all that stuff. I'm not a big mountain biker, but just it's such a good resource, and my kid loves to go on the pump track.
hmm.
I have a 6-year-old, um, and so we're always over there, and it needs help. So that I can't discount, but feel free to purchase that. Every extra dollar goes towards improving that place.
Cool. I did want to ask you about that because I saw your Instagram stories and I saw the designs on your site, and I was
Yeah.
curious.
So
Like,
again, John, I hate to keep, I love to keep bringing up John, but
yeah.
it makes it seem like John is the only person I ride with. But John again, there was they ran a contest to see who would to do a design for the park, and John won because he's
Oh,
amazing.
nice.
Yeah. Um,
And,
sorry.
and Rick said your New Jersey tax dollars at work. So,
Cambridge does have the highest taxes in our county and the neighboring counties as well. I think
huh,
we're pretty bad.
huh. Trying to read some of these other comments before we move on.
Mhm.
A computer mount that looks like a wiener. Yeah, that already happened. Silka did that.
He
Yeah.
exists.
Dylan's comment makes no sense to me. I think Aaron and Dylan are. Oh, they're talking Harry Potter. Yeah, I don't know anything about that. I did see the first one, but that was it. So,
I've been reading it with my kid, but he can't retain any of it, so we stopped.
yeah, six
Um,
six is probably a little young for that, right? Or I wouldn't know.
yeah, I'm reading it to him. He's not reading it.
Hmm.
So by the end now, I think we need to start over because I feel like he's kind of lost. It's all good.
Muskrat said,
Yeah,
"Oh, go ahead."
no, no, go.
Muskrat said a Merlin Wahoo would be a nice retro look. So I assume that's the wizard. Well, I mean, I know Merlin, the famous wizard, right? If that's where he's going with that. Oh, they're talking about best comment of the night, and Blackwell said dueling basements was pretty good. I think that's comment of the night because it does look like you're like right over on the other side of this wall.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's funny. But yeah, Ibridge also it's a really cool town. So it was, a little bit further out here east, we start to have a lot of like Revolutionary era history. So we
Hmm.
were home to the Taylor Wharton Steel Company, who made like the cannonballs for the Revolutionary War. And on our night moves ride, so we do this like ride every Friday night. We have this really cool loop that we do. We ride right through this house called the Solitude House, where when they took the governor of Pennsylvania during the Revolutionary War hostage, this is where the American army took him and kept him. And so like we ride kind of right by it during our routes, and then we actually ride right behind the steel mill. You can actually there's a thing called the Steelworkers Greenway, so we can ride right between the mill and where their like stockyard is. It's a really cool spot. So that's why the other one I was saying steel kind of matters around here for a lot of reasons. Like we are a steel town, through and through, and that place is still operating as it's not making bikes or anything like that, but they're still making steel products in our town.
The house comes up just by typing in on Google Maps,
Yeah,
by the way. Um, Are you guys so you guys made the cannonballs? Is that where that horrible disaster was way back during the Revolution? Do you know what I'm talking about? There was
I
a
don't.
there was a steel factory that exploded, so I didn't know if that was
Oh
the
no,
one.
I don't think that was this.
Okay.
I mean, I have to imagine there's probably a couple of towns that could claim they made the cannonballs because probably a lot of cannonballs back then. But they still have some. And if you're walking in the woods back there, you can still find like they made car wheels at one point, so you can find some weird stuff
Oh, huh.
um, up there.
I always joke since we're the rubber capital, there's tires everywhere. But it's
Oh
like,
yeah.
no, we're just a post-industrial town, and everyone dumps their
Mhm.
tires because you can't do anything with them. That it has nothing to do with that. We made all the tires. Everyone dumps their tires in the woods. But I'm trying to zoom out here a little bit to get a
Yeah,
an
it's a lot
idea.
of green, as you can tell. So we're
Yeah.
not like the if you think of New Jersey, a lot of people think of like the intro to The Sopranos.
Hmm.
That is very much not the area of New Jersey that I'm from, and honestly, very little of New Jersey is actually like that. There's
Huh.
some parts of Middlesex County and Essex County that are like that. Most of it's pretty green.
Yeah, the
Um,
coast is what has the. I think of the coast a lot too.
yeah, yeah, Jersey Shore, obviously,
Yeah.
as most people know us for.
We went to Ocean City, Maryland as kids, which isn't that far. But then we had also like my parents like to extend our vacations, and so we had gone up into Rehoboth, Atlantic City, Ocean City, New Jersey. So yeah, just the barrier islands I is where I've been in New Jersey. I don't think I've really. So you're so almost where you are. I guess.
We're almost Pennsylvania. We're only like 20 miles from the border of PA.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah. Oh, so Bethlehem, which is in Allentown, the huge steel towns as well,
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. And
The
then so,
shirts I get made, I go over to Bethlehem to pick them up. They're that's where he does all my printing over there.
okay. How what is your time to New York then? Because you're like then going the other way. You're not far from New York City at all, huh?
No, so that's the kind of the best part. Like when bands come through, like we were talking about earlier, like I get to pick: do I want to go to the Philly show or do I want to go to the New York show? Which one's on a more convenient day, or which band plays better in Philly? Mountain Goats always play better in Philly.
Ah,
Uh,
you're,
but it's an hour. Like to the problem is it's an hour ish if there's not a lot of traffic to the tunnel or to the tunnel is usually because we're if you see right there we're on 78, which
yeah.
basically is the road that the Holland Tunnel just keeps you go out the Holland Tunnel that's 78 pretty much.
All right.
Um, but so like on a good day, hour and 20 to Greenpoint where all the good music is, or it's an hour and 20 to Philly. So really, you come home, it's dark, it's quiet, it's a nice rural area. But then only and one small inconvenient drive to anything I want in any of the two major cities that we're surrounded by.
Huh. Yeah, when I would after Nutmeg, me and Ben toured the state a little bit of Connecticut, and we stayed with a
Mhm.
friend that I have who lives almost on the Massachusetts border in the north. And he was saying when he tried to ask everyone what they do around there, because it's beautiful. He lives like way up on like one of the, it's like a little mountain, like with the foothills for the Berkshires. And he was like, everyone I talked to, they're like, oh, well, you could go to Philly, you could go to New York. And he was like, what do you guys do around here? And then as he showed us around, it was like, man, you could just like, they don't even have no bike signs. You would be able to mountain bike their trails. Like right from his
Yeah.
house, you could just start hiking. And he was like, he hated it for a number of years and now he's been there for 10 years and now he likes it. But at first it was like, oh, everyone only moves here because they think it's a bedroom community for one of these big cities. He was like, but there's cool stuff right around here.
Yeah.
It's best of both world type thing, right?
Yeah, honestly, when I grew up 2 towns over, went to the same high school like my kid will go to. If you had asked me when I was 16 if I would still live here, I would have punched you in the face. Like, there's no way I would have ever guessed I'd be moved back here. But lived a couple other places, and what I realized is like, oh shit, this actually is a pretty good area. And to your point, like we got down to one car, so I really try not to do any rides where I have to get in my car and drive to the start of them. So over the last year, doing that has really forced me to find more rides that start from my front door, and I have not been wanting for places to ride. Like it's there's John and I actually just John again, but we just found a new like cut through for between like one of the parks that we go through. That'll get to another area that might be a back door into the state park. Like so, there's still a million different trails around here or different little things that I've never done, and which is so cool for such a small area.
That I think that happens too as you get older and like more curious and you find more. Because I didn't think I was going to spend my life even where I am. I'm like, oh, it's this dying Rust Belt town. You know what I mean? That rut city. It's like no, I'm going to get out of here. And it's funny because my friends who all moved to Colorado and California, and so many of them are once they started to have kids, they're like, oh man, that wasn't so bad. Cleveland's only for us. Cleveland's the big city, so uh, 40-minute drive depending on where you're at, and you got that
Mhm.
Columbus is 2 hours, which Columbus is way younger. There's a bunch of
Yeah,
Columbus people in here like Pudgy and Dylan. Um, and Columbus is like an actual growing hip city, Cleveland said.
yeah.
So,
That's where Honda has a lot of stuff in Columbus, right? My friend lived out there for a while working for Honda R&D.
oh, okay. I actually didn't know that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You were in because I remember one time you said you were in a band that was you were signed to Alive or something.
I would say that again. Sorry.
You mentioned you were assigned to the guy from Black Keys
Oh,
label. So I think that was Alive or
yeah.
was it?
No, he what the name of his label was we never signed with him. He put us out on one of his comps, but he's a the drummer is a friend of mine, and he recorded us in his basement in Highland
Oh, cool.
Square, and it's three houses down from where, if you know Devo, they had their house when they were lived in
Yeah,
Akron and all that, and we're in a band. So yeah, so just the same friend group, and we wanted to record the analog tape, and Pat still had an eight
yeah.
track tape machine in his basement in Highland Square. So yeah.
There's like enough. I feel like Ohio has enough bigger cities in somewhat of a drivable area that must have made it pretty convenient for being in a band. Or am I completely off there?
No, 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 that's totally true. You could, I mean, bands like we always joked about, like your Ohio tour, because you could really go. You can play Akron, Cleveland, Youngstown, Columbus, Cincinnati, which is we almost don't even consider Cincinnati part of Ohio because it's like right there by Kentucky, but it is like,
Yeah.
a really cool, especially now. Like Cincinnati had all kinds of problems for a long time, and now has turned into
Mhm.
this awesome place. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so you could just like bounce around the state. I mean, it's been shrinking over the last couple decades, but for a long time, it's like the cradle of the presidents. It's just yeah, it was like the sixth most populated state for, I don't know, half a century, which now it's fallen to
Yeah.
like 9 or 10. But I love that you mentioned the mountain goats, and other people are jumping on the mountain goats
Yeah.
thing, and I
Favorite.
and I love the
I'm a
mountain.
metal bit through and through, but the Mountain Goats will still always be my favorite band. I've seen them 30 plus times, and anytime I can get out there,
I've
I
never seen them live. Where are they from?
oh, I mean,
They're California,
all over
right?
the place, but they're from North Carolina. I would
Oh,
say at this
North
point they
Carolina.
consider themselves now. Yeah,
Someone said, what was there was a line about the drummer on there because
Worcester. John Worcester is from Nepa, isn't he? He's from uh, not Philly, but like a little further north.
oh, that's a
Um,
blackball here. Does Mountain Goats play better in Philly because Philly boy Roy is on drums?
so that he's talking about was WFMU Tom Sharpling's show. John Worcester would call in doing a character, Philly Boy Roy, in a Philly accent, and would it like just YouTube Philly Boy Roy. There's hours and hours and hours of just like improv comedy happening on the radio that he would just call into the show as his character, and it's so good. Including, I think he went on a whole rant for an hour about The Sopranos. He would the character would watch The Sopranos through like a shop window, so he couldn't hear anything. So he had a whole different like narrative of what the show was about. It was about a singing group from like South Philly or something like that. So yeah, I highly recommend googling Philly Boy Roy. There's a lot of good comedy gold out there.
Yeah, so I was just no, man, did I lose my train of thought? I was. Oh yeah, there's a. Did you find that someone sent me a podcast that like breaks down the Mountain Goats like
Yeah,
crazy good?
I only listen to Mountain Goats.
Yeah, I
That he did with the guy from Welcome to Nightville.
yeah, that was amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm a huge fan. New Year's, of course. I'm like, what's a New Year's song? We're trying to listen to stuff, and then my friend Brad. I mean, there's only four of us because of the situation, but the COVID situation. But my one friend was like, "Funny Brad," is he's known on this channel. He's like, "This Year" by the Mountain Goats. I'm like, "Oh, you're right. That's the number one New Year's song of all
That's it.
time." Like, it edges out Old Lang Syne by a mile. So,
Or speaking of Thursday, Jet Black New Year's is another good one. Thursday Deep Cut. Um,
oh,
but that was another. Speaking of Jersey, the New Brunswick is another cool thing. That's like the town where Rutgers is. So you'd be able to go. I know we're getting off the bikes into music a little bit, but
yeah.
you used to be able to go to base. I think you still can. I'm just out of the scene. Like you had to know where the house was. The house all had names in the town, so like it'd be a Cooler Ranch or the Alamo. Never published an address. You had to know somebody that knew somebody that knew somebody to like find out where the show was. But you could go there and see like touring bands from Finland, like thrash bands coming through, or Thou, or like good doom bands. Like there was just each house had kind of like its own like genre that it was linked into. But there was nationally touring bands coming through and playing in basements for $5. That then you'd be like sitting there smoking weed on the patio with them afterwards. Like
Nice.
really cool. New Jersey's kind of known there for a while, especially during that whole like post hardcore thing. Like New Jersey was back on the map, but New Jersey's always been a really good spot for music.
Huh. I two things. I saw Large Marge mentioned the label that Patrick Carney had for a number of years was Audio Eagle. So
Wow,
the first
that was a
label,
lot.
yeah, the first label that Black Keys signed to was Alive, but that wasn't. They didn't
Oh, yeah,
own
that's what
that
it was.
label. They signed to that label, which I only had ever known
Got it.
because if you remember, the U.S. Bombs was on Alive back in
Mhm.
the
Yeah,
day.
yeah, yeah.
Wayne Peters, who's gone off the edge, is like some crazy right wing Trumper over the last few years. But
Weren't they on Hellcat too? The guy from Rancid's label, I
yeah,
think.
so they went
Yeah.
to, yeah, they went to Hellcat and Epitaph. Basically, Hellcat
Mhm.
is owned by it, was owned by
That's right,
Epitaph.
because they're a sub imprint of Epitaph,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, they were trying to, and then Pat's been like, once we did the major label thing, and he was like, he's like, yeah, it gives you reach, and it's like it's a nightmare. They pay you nothing. They don't listen to you. He was like, we've been selling records on this label for 8 years, and I'd be like, approach him about like, hey, there's this awesome woman who's making this great music. Could I get someone to help her out or do anything? And he's like, it's like they never even heard of me when I try and like ask for anything. He's like, it's
That's
everything
funny.
that you hear, it's garbage, you know. But yeah, it's amazing to watch their career arc because they kept getting bigger and bigger locally. They were getting their records put out, and all the way up to arena rock. It's the opposite curve. Every band has this one thing, and then they're like doing county fairs for 10 years, you know. And they went
Yeah.
the opposite way, where it's like they just kept getting bigger and bigger. It was just a mind blowing to know people who that's happened to,
Yeah.
you know.
I mean, I definitely the big come up was like was into it from the second I heard that, and I think I was on board up until like maybe Brothers, and I'll be very honest, I don't know that I've kept up with anything. Maybe like El Camino, everybody's heard because it's such a classic, but
Yeah,
I don't think I've heard an album since. To
yeah,
be very
you.
honest.
I'm man, the last one, or well, I really like the last blues cover one. They put out one that was just like
Oh,
all Delta
I didn't.
blues, and well, it's after 10, so I could say, as the kids say, it fucks. But but
It's under 10. I think I broke that rule a few times. Sorry.
yeah. But besides that, like the one they put out before, and or the couple before, I was just like this. Yeah, it's just sounded it was did nothing for me. But Brothers, yeah, I think that was the last really the one that resonated for me still. But yeah, the big come up and Rubber Factory and those Thick Freakness,
Thick Darkness, and yeah, that's good.
those were killer albums. Then they did some side project EPs that were great too. But I'm surprised that Patrick said he's never heard of the Mountain Goats. I would have thought he would have, but I mean, I'm
Really,
not.
I mean, if I could go back in a time machine and get to re-experience like the entire 30 album discography of the Mountain Goats for the first time again, that's something I would be willing to pay for because you're in for a treat, bud.
Yeah,
Buckle up.
yeah, I'm trying. Yeah, what's the name? The album with the best ever death metal band out of Denton.
Oh, I'll have West Texas.
Yeah, that's still my that one still to me is just that I love the rawness of that one and still like the slight lo-fi, but the songwriting
Yeah.
that's still my favorite.
That was definitely a cool one because that was after he had progressed from the early stuff where he was still really learning how to play guitar. Like he had also been playing guitar for a few years at that point when he recorded those early like boombox albums. So like to go back to that style after he had learned everything he learned and how to like really craft songs and then go back to that. I thought that was that's imagine one of those albums that like you can never recreate it. I think even if you tried
Yeah, yeah, it's just
these days.
perfect. Yeah,
Yeah,
I follow him on
but
Twitter too, and he's amazing on Twitter. You know, great.
yeah.
Uh,
He's a big metal dude too. So like I saw him at the like a this metal magazine's 100th show. They're out of Philly, so they had a big thing, one of the big venues of Philly, and like nobody there knows who he is. Uh, so like he's just walking around just like Joe Schmo, like John Yellow to Mangoes, how's it going? He's really nice, and I fanned out way too hard, but he's such a nice guy.
hmm. Yeah, I was wondering what he'd be. Well, you know, he'd be a nice guy, but I was wondering if he'd also be like kind of painfully shy, if he would be like unapproachable and the opposite end of the spectrum, like so many like a lot of musicians that I know in our
Yeah.
scene have been. But yeah,
I'd be curious if I met him at like something Mountain Goats related though, if it would be the same. But I think because he was out of his element there too, so he was probably just looking for a friendly face also.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so that might have been it. But uh, yeah, I know. So side, doing a little thing, but yeah, New Jersey's definitely a good music spot for bikes. Like we have a pretty good gravel scene. Not, let's look at that. There's no gravel scene here. There's really not like big gravel races or anything like that. But the reality is, a lot of the towns, especially where we're from, um, it's a lot of back roads and rural roads, and there's a lot of really rich old money towns. Not, I certainly don't live in that one, and I
Yeah.
don't have that. But near us, rideable from us, is like Bedminster, Tewksbury, some really old towns where they intentionally did not pave the roads because they don't want people coming through. They want these are old money people that have these huge
Uh,
estates. They're like, you're out there riding through like a dirt road, and like there's a castle over to the right, literally. I'm not joking. There's somebody that built a house that's literally a castle out there.
yeah.
um, so like you're riding out around there, so it's gorgeous, and they don't let it get too bad because they have enough money to fix these roads if they need to. They just choose not to make them better. So it's actually really good riding for off-road riding and things like that. And then we have a lot of just like rivers and creeks and stuff like that. And we just being out this way is where a lot of the state parks and things like that are. So we have good camping and hiking and stuff like that too.
Yeah, I'm looking
But
at
you
the.
don't think of
No, no, no one thinks of that top half of New Jersey. You think of like the upper part of New Jersey. You think of like the edge of New York, and then the bottom is either Trenton or the Jersey coast. And I'm looking at like how there's like these dammed up reservoirs here, like this one, Spruce Run, I have on the screen,
yeah.
and
I
then
worked there in college. Yep.
Round Valley Reservoir, and
Yeah. Round Valley, I think we talked about on a previous episode where that's the one that they flooded that town. So if you go
oh,
like that's really popular for divers because they'll go down and dive and see the buildings aren't there, but all the roads and stuff.
oh, really interesting. That doesn't look like a. It doesn't have the shape of a like a dammed up river. It kind of has more of a classic lake look. That's interesting that that would be.
That one's man-made, so I don't think there was actually a river that flowed to it. I think they did something there. I could be completely wrong. I'm terrible at that. But there's actually there's wilderness campsites that state park. So this summer I'm trying to. It's an 8 mile, pretty rugged ride out to it. So I think we're gonna try to do maybe get some campsites out there and do like a bike packing overnighter out there for anybody in the area.
I saw you said you did the. I was looking back through your Instagram feed and saw you did the Gap Trail. Have you done? What is the longer tours you've done? Is that one of the longer ones, or have you done some?
That's actually, I'll be very honest, the only tour like that I've done. I did the New York to Philly one. I rode a touring bike for a long time. I had an old Schwinn Continental that was my main bike for a really long time. That had old friction shifters, and I think it was one of the heaviest production bikes ever made. I think it was like 47 pounds. It was a beast. But I had never gotten into touring, so how I got into this was, I think like 2011 or 2012, I did like my first 30-mile charity ride. Wanted to get really into it, but then at that time, the only thing I was aware of was like roadie stuff. So that just really did not click with me. Tried to get into that and just really couldn't find a lot of friendly faces or like friendly people to try to help with that. And so I kind of got out of that for a little bit. I kept riding. I was riding this this bike over here, which is my wife's GT Aggressor, which is like a size and a half too small for me. And so I was dealing with all sorts of issues with that, but I would ride that thing all over the place till I got the touring bike. But it was always a solo thing for me. I always just rode by myself and was always kind of wishing like, man, I wish I could get like this bike bigger, but maybe not mountain bike tires, maybe like thinner tires, or like, oh man, I wish I could get this bike with drop bars. And then, maybe 2-ish years ago, I, stumbled across adventure cycling or gravel or whatever you want to call this thing that we all do, right?
Yeah.
And it really wasn't until then that like I got really into bikes because I never felt like I had a good home, never felt like I had a crew, didn't have friends that did it, and you try to talk to the guy at work that road rides. He's like, yeah, I rode 80 miles in spandex, and I did divorce 3 times, and spent all my time on the road. Like, I'm like, I don't know if that's the dude I want to be hanging out with all weekend. See, I never really got into it, and then, but I was riding. I was riding on my own a lot, but didn't even know that like touring was an option. Didn't know that bike packing was an option. Wasn't where I've been, 2 years ago. I think stumbled upon like I was literally just like Googling like, can you get like a hybrid with drop bars, and stumbled across like Spin Dad or something like that,
Yeah.
or somebody doing the conversion, and then stumbled across Russ and Ronnie and all those, the familiar faces, and that's what really sucked me in, and like I had felt like at home, and then didn't exist around here. So one of the reasons I started Party Size is just because like I didn't, there's bike shop rides and things like that. I just wanted people to ride with, and I was like, a couple of us got together and started doing a Friday night ride because we all had kids, and it was the only time we could get out, and do it together. And that turned into then something a little bit more formal. And then I got tired of pestering my friends on my real Instagram, about bike stuff. So I started Party Size Cycling, got a logo, took that one picture on the Gap, and that like blew up of me with my shirt off, the one you used for the
Ah,
thing there. And
thumbnail, yeah.
yeah, I got like 300 followers like within a week of starting Party Size Cycling
Ah.
from that picture. And I was like, oh shit, I can actually do this. And then that, we started to find people like George, who rides with us, who say everybody had the same story. I rode my bike. I didn't have any friends that rode my bike. Anybody I talked to was a roadie asshole. And what we found is that just by existing and just being persistent and just putting out the rides, some weeks it's just me, some weeks it's just Rich and I, my buddy on the street, punk rock fly fish guy. If you see him on my stuff all the time, Rich really did not ever ride a bike ever, but now rides all the time because of we do this. But the stories over and over again. I didn't fit in with the bike crowd. I feel like I fit in here. I've been looking for this for a while. I didn't know this was here. And I encourage anybody else out there that feels the same way to just start your own shit. Like, and I don't know if it's just coming from punk rock, DIY, hardcore thing, like if something you want doesn't exist, just make it or do it. So there's probably a bunch of people wherever you live, that that are into this. You just need to make a community for them to find. For them
Yeah, they want to do
to
it
love
too.
it.
That's what,
Yeah.
like, my story's completely different, but almost the same. It's just because I just came from a place where my dad rode a bike, but he was never a cyclist. He never owned anything that was cycling specific. Like he didn't own any kit. He just had always found stuff that worked for him, and I just like to ride my bike. And then like I worked on a farm for years, and I just didn't have time in the summer. When I got back into it, I posted a couple pictures. My Woody Roach Clips. He's like, "Hey, you're riding your bike? Hit me up." Our friend Wes, who was the singer of my band, he was like, he bought an old Peugeot. He's like, let's ride. And we're all like people who want to stop somewhere to have beers. And so like,
Yeah.
and then when I met like Large Marge, we were like, we started to meet people who were like, do you know that there's an old abandoned train line here you could ride your bike down? And then we're on like, Large was only riding a fixie at the time, and had just built up a Viscount, an old British 10 speed
Oh wow.
that I loved. And we're like bombing down these like gravel, like what I call the industrial gravel on like 25 millimeter tires. And like, but just so happy about it, like trying to keep our bikes upright, but like not even like I always, that's why I joke when I say I invented the gravel bike. Like I invented it just like everybody else did. You know what I mean? Because all of a sudden you realize like this could be more comfortable in some way. And then when our friend opened up we didn't know him at the time, a mutual friend was like, hey, this guy's opening a bike shop. And he just slowly weaned us off our like skinny tire, and we weren't even riding them to be roadies. We were just like,
Yeah.
we just thought they were cool.
It's because you
But
don't know it's out there
yeah,
until you get like led into that like club, or like you're even aware that it's out there. So if you don't look for it, it's not right in front of you.
yeah.
You know.
But if you look for the group ride, if you do start like the roadie stuff is what, especially, like we were talking like 10 years ago and stuff, that's what's going to come up.
Yeah.
I'm just lucky I never had any like, I guess in a way that I was so ignorant of any kind of cycling culture, I wasn't paying attention to it. I just didn't care. So
Right.
there was like, someone would be riding a fixie, someone would be riding a mountain bike, someone would have a fat bike, and we're all like, hey, let's go get drunk and ride our bikes. And
Yeah.
then
You don't realize there's something like wrong with that. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Most people are like, what are you guys doing riding together?
Yeah. And it's like,
I will say there was like an old meetup.com, which was big at the time. There was a group I was in, Big Weekend Adventures, and they, I feel like, would do now looking back on it, what I realized was this type of like inclusive cycling where they would do all it wasn't easy, and it was a lot of trails and rail trails and things like that. So a lot of quote unquote gravel, but a lot of like back roadsy type stuff. But I just know that's what it was called, and I feel like every ride I lead, I'm like emulating this really good ride leader that we had for that group. It kind of dissolved after he left, and somebody that took it over tried to turn into like a pyramid scheme thing, and it was devolved really quickly after they tried to like start selling products on their flights. But like looking back at it, that was really who I'm trying to emulate, and I feel like that was actually my first exposure to it. But there's no name for it. You know what I mean? It wasn't like could Google it. And how
Yeah.
do you find this type of ride? Which
Someone meant,
hopefully has changed.
yeah. And I think it definitely is. I think there's more out there. Um, Two things. One, there's a couple gap questions, but I want to say real quick. Erin, my girlfriend, who's someone who
Mhm.
never rode in a bike as an adult, who met all of us, like me and my friends who were already established and were getting into the gravel scene, when like the protest happened and like BLM and stuff like that, and like some of the stuff that kind of All City came out looking a little tone deaf. Trek had their media people actually sounding really smart, but they're the opposite. And like
Right.
she didn't then like comment section, she didn't know about the broy side of cycling to that point. And I'm like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of Lance Armstrong bros out there. Like they have been the dominant factor in cycling for a long time. And so it was
Yeah.
interesting to see someone exposed the opposite way. I'm like, oh yeah, there's jocks. Like there's a jockey scene, and I'm someone who loves racing. I don't race, but I mean, it's like a entertainment thing. I enjoy it, so I know about those people, you know. But of course, my favorite team is EF with
Same. I mean, I watch road. I like EF also. I like following road cycling like as a professional sport as well. There's nothing wrong with that. Don't appreciate race culture that surrounds it, but I appreciate that like the people that are working at that level of like cycling that's a skill very few people have, and it's amazing to watch them climb those mountains and do what they do day after day after day, you know?
yeah.
So no, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I just think it's a problem when like the local guy down the street thinks he's that and is gonna shit on anybody that's not trying to do that.
And also just
I'm pretty sure the choir, I realize that too. Like you guys all feel the same way, I'm sure.
yeah, your 10,000 bike doesn't make you any better than me. You bought it at a store. I could go buy one if I had the money to. Um,
Yeah.
Usually, you probably can't, and this doesn't even matter either. But I used to just love being going through the Cuyahoga Valley, and some roadie would pass me on their $10,000 whatever, and I'd be on my 2001 Trek mountain bike in my jeans, and I would love to jump on their wheel, like, and be like, "Hey, do you mind if I hang out back here for a minute, like in your draft?" And it would ruin, like, because again, it's like, dude, it doesn't matter. See, like your bike doesn't matter that much. They're not that much faster. Yeah, if you're winning the tour,
Where are you trying to go? Where are you trying to go? Like
yeah, yeah,
you're, it's different if like to me the interesting thing is a commuter to me should be the person that should really want to go as fast as humanly possible because they're going from A to B or
yeah,
somebody that is biking to the grocery store, right? Like that's the person that has a vested interest in getting somewhere and getting back. The average roadie is out just riding in a circle for no reason. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like they're not. There's no reason to be fast other than Strava points.
yeah.
Like look, if that's what you want to do, I'm not slagging on that either because that's a shitty thing to do to other people. But I just like when you make other people miserable because they don't do that. That's what I have a problem with.
That's exactly the thing. Like I don't have a problem with anyone Strava segment hunting, but again, yeah, if you're just getting kitted out to hang out on the group ride or to try and hang in on the group ride, and it's a like, and then you're just looking down on anyone else who rides a bike. Like when I like
Yeah,
we always joke about this in the Discord, but when I throw up a hand and pass a roadie and they don't wave back, it really is like fuck you, man. Like we're
yeah,
out doing the same thing. Like I'm out getting some exercise, enjoying the fresh air. Like yeah, and again, I'm glad that I am slightly fast because once in a while I will turn myself inside out to ride by one of those guys just to be a just to like return
yeah.
the favor. You know what I mean? Because I could be Spidey, but yeah, but again, it's stupid. That's even what I'm doing is stupid. It's just like don't look down on anyone. Like we want more people on bikes no matter what. Like you won't have to be out here on this busy road if we have more infrastructure or there'll be a bigger shoulder or whatever it may be. But yeah, the other thing was to not because it's definitely a rabbit hole, but some gap logistics. I We did it too, and we took the train one way, and they were asking, did you Amtrak one way or did you?
Uh, we did not. We looked into that, um, but what we found was maybe an extra $100, and was a better option for us was to rent a minivan one way from Hertz, and we drove out to Pittsburgh and dropped it off. It was about $300 for us from New Jersey. Amtrak for two of us would have been about $200.
Hmm.
So to be able to, and the problem was there's only one train that goes from New York to Pittsburgh. So we would have lost an entire day of travel versus we got up and got on the road at 6 a.m. We got 40 miles in on day zero because of that. So we were able to make it to those hiker, the first group of the second group of hiker biker sites coming from Pittsburgh out, which really put us on a good trajectory. Because then like Confluence was only another 40 to 50 miles. And then Cumberland was a 60-mile day, but that's an mixed, that's a day where you have that big, it's not even that big of a hill, but like you have the long sustained kind of like slow climb.
That's the
But then,
longest climb I've ever done based on my Strava. But it's again,
yeah,
it's like a
technically,
1 or 2% grade, so it's railroad grade. It's you feel it. You're
yeah,
a couple gears easier than you would normally be in, but yeah, it's not a
sure.
climb. Yeah.
But
Anyway,
you're not killing yourself. And then, I mean, but what's fun is after you get to the top, the ride down is so much fun. Where we
yeah.
just, I was with a buddy, and I don't think we pedaled once from the high point down to Cumberland. Like we just literally coasted. We probably could have got there a lot faster, but without pedaling, you were going 13 miles an hour. So it was nice to just like sit there and shoot the shit after a day of like kind of that 1 to 2% will drain on you after a while. So it was nice to like just relax and hang out. We didn't realize. So there's that train track that you're kind of like crisscrossing as you're coming back down the mountain.
Yeah.
Um, Whatever day we were there was like they were doing the touristy, like running the train actually down that track. We didn't realize it was a real. We're just like la la la, like riding. All of a sudden we started to see people on the side of the road like gathering. And they're like, "Did the train come yet?" We're like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
It's a vintage
um,
steam engine, isn't it? Don't they run a
yeah,
vintage
we got
steam
to the
engine?
bottom, and like 30 seconds after we got to the bottom, a giant train behind us and like came through right as we got off of the trail. We're like, I know we could have like I'm sure we would have heard the train, but
Yeah.
like we had no idea. We were just like la la la, like crisscrossing in front of this train track, like
Nice.
like it was a damn train track.
Yeah. We did the Gap Trail in like almost a circle because we parked not far from Pittsburgh, rode into Pittsburgh,
Mhm.
took the train to Cumberland, and then rode
Okay,
back to then spent 2 days getting back to our car. So we
got it.
rode up that cinder because it's cindery. It's like the trail's way better in
Yeah.
Pennsylvania than it is in Maryland. And so we were going up that, like where the train is and all that. And
Yep.
but then like so then you actually have 2 days that are all slightly downhill because that's
Oh, cool.
the Alleghenies, and it's barely noticeable like going the other way, but it is
Right.
that noticeable. You're like, I'm going, and at the time, me and Erin, she had never done anything like this. I had never like we did Airbnb, so we weren't fully loaded. We were just clothes and toiletries, whatever. But you're like, man, I just feel so good. You're like, because you do, you have that like just almost imperceptible fault. I guess they call it a false flat,
Yeah.
in reverse. But yeah, I really want to do the CNO though, because I see the pictures
Yeah.
from that. Now I want to go do the
See, you know,
Gap.
better.
Only spend 2 days on the Gap because I can knock out a couple 75-mile days, camp one day, and then really take my time to see the history along the CNO. But
Yeah, the other problem is too. So the Gap Trail is very. I mentioned we have a rail trail that literally is right down the street from my house, where the trailhead for it. It is even the foliage or like the vegetation around it is extremely similar to to the Gap. So for me, it was like this is the trail that I ride every day. Is like my boring just get miles in or just like hang out. This is like where we do our beer rides. It was just that for 3 days. So by the end of the Gap, I was like, I'm over this. So the CNO was, especially day one, coming from Cumberland out, pretty like, there was some terrain. There was people that we weren't riding with other people. We like, you crisscross people on tour and you kind of see them and they pass you and you pass them and all that. Like a lot of people were like really having a hard time with it and like falling. The one lady unfortunately like fell in a huge mud pile. Like, it was really unfortunate. But for me, I, for the first time in 3 days, was having the time of my life. So I was so happy to see that. And this Sino is a much more interesting trail, in my opinion. And also the history along the Sino, I feel like, is better than the Gap.
I said this about the Gap, and I don't say this negatively to turn anyone off of riding it, but I said it's all
Mhm.
beautiful and it becomes monotonous beauty because it's all the
It really does.
same. It's the same river canyon, like which is a
Yep.
cool. And if you went and did a day ride, you'd be like, "This is beautiful." But and the little towns were cool. Like we stopped in some little towns. We went to one cafe that the owner was amazing and like stuff like that. And like they orient their little towns towards the trail, which is cool. But exactly what you're
Yep.
saying, it like it's monotonous beauty. It doesn't the scenery doesn't change a lot, and especially you didn't take the Amtrak, but if you do, you're seeing all the same stuff from the other side of the river while you're on the
Yeah.
train. It's with our loop.
Done that trip. You have that big horseshoe bend if you're coming from New York too, which is a really cool spot. For work, I used to take the train out to Pittsburgh. But yeah, the other thing, what was it? What time of year did you go?
We went in August. It was hot. It was like 90 because I'm thinking of the pictures I have of Erin, and she's like barely wearing
Hmm.
anything. But yeah,
So we went, I think, too early. We went Memorial Day weekend is when we left, and the problem was a lot of the towns had not opened up yet for the season. So
uh,
like we got to Harper's Ferry and we're like, oh, we're gonna do all this cool stuff in Harper's Ferry. Nothing was open, so we literally like stayed in Harper's Ferry for an hour or two, and then just left and we're like, hey, let's beat the storm that's been following us, and we turned that into we were gonna do like an easy 20-mile day and hang on at Harper's Ferry and get a bed and breakfast or something like that. To like we ended up making that a 67-mile day to set up an easy ride into DC the next day.
uh, how was how Susan? She's a photographer who I leased the studio to. She's actually retiring. She was telling
Mhm.
me that one of the coolest things of the CNO is kind of coming out of the woods and then seeing DC. She said it kind of opened up in a cool way. Was that
Yeah,
your
I would
experience?
agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you come through this really cool park kind of before you get to DC, which was nice. I will say I wish they had better signage to get you to the mile zero marker once you get into DC. It's kind of hard to find. Even though we knew it was behind the boathouse, we still really couldn't figure out where to go. Um, but that would be my only complaint with once you get there. But then, we spent 2 days in DC and we had a good time
Not
after that. I would say if you were going to pick one or the other, personally I would recommend doing the Cino. It's also easier in terms of logistics because there's a campsite every 4 miles with water, and a fire ring and a bathroom. So wherever you get tired, you can just stop and camp. Versus Gap, you definitely have to, I think, plan a little bit more where you're going to camp. It's not as like I just stop on the side and camp.
Yeah, and we had planned Airbnbs, like I said. Then once we
Mm.
wrote it and saw where the campsites were, we're like, oh, we can arrange it around this. But you're absolutely right.
Yep.
They're not like everywhere. You would have to know where you're gonna go. So,
So we kept leapfrogging some people that were on like a tour that they had paid for. So there was one day where they were like they felt like they could have done another 20 or 30 miles, but they had to stop there because that's where they were getting picked up, be driven to their Airbnb. And then other days they were like we were ready to stop and they still had 20 miles to go to get to the pickup point. So I definitely would not recommend that route. Maybe what you guys did was a little bit better, but because you can still change that. But these guys were really stuck and they had their bags and stuff like that, so they couldn't do anything about it.
they were asking me to fire up some pictures. My problem is I would have had to be like set up for that because I went
Um,
to try and change to where I would normally do that, but then it cuts us off. So, I mean, I guess we'd still be talking in the background, but
I
I
don't
was t-
think at this point they're probably sick of seeing our faces.
yeah. That's Patrick said. So talking, I think what we were saying about the gap of the monotonous beauty he said sounds like the coastal highway in Oregon. Oh, look, it's the most beautiful beach you've ever seen. Again, uh, trying to read what else we definitely
So
want.
who's mentioned the Empire State Trail? I definitely want to do that. I think that's the next one if I had to pick. Um, the Hop Birder rides that a lot. I don't know if you guys. By the way, that's a great Instagram account if you ever want to follow somebody. Hop Birder. He's a does like a lot of bird photography and rides bikes. He's also a nutmeg. I don't know if you got a chance to meet him, but he his Instagram is 100% gorgeous photos of nature and birds.
Huh.
Can't recommend it.
I was trying to think of the other guy. a bunch of us on here follow him mutually on YouTube, and exactly what you're saying about the CNO. He was coming out of DC, and I remember him being like, he's like, "Oh, I'm on the wrong side of the canal," and but he was saying how he got real confused when he was trying to get out on the CNO going from DC out. But
Yeah.
let me. I think. Well, it wouldn't. I don't think it would take away our voices, right? No, I could still hear you.
I
No, I could. Yeah, we could still hear you. So yeah.
People are sick of hearing me talk by this point. However that happens.
I think it. Let me see if I tagged my stuff the Gap Trail on Flickr because I would have some photos of what it looks like. But usually I would do this behind the scenes, but tonight I have no way to do that. But oh yeah, yeah, I could pull some of these up. So some of these, well, again, it'll be delayed for you. Oh yeah, what is that? That there's that one town with the big iron bridge, Ohio Pile, which is kind of like a
Yeah.
more scenic stop, and people go there to do
Yep.
outdoorsy things. Let me see if I
Yeah,
can.
there's whitewater rafting and stuff like that in that town. I think that you can do if
Yeah,
you want to have more of a longer day there.
yeah, we went for. It was actually Erin's birthday, so when we hit Pittsburgh, and I planned this trip for her birthday, and she had never done anything like it, and I was like, I said we were like, even though I think I probably fall on the Gen X side, I was like, I'm peak millennial, giving my girlfriend a experience for her birthday. So
Very minimalist of you, Tim.
what's that?
Very minimalist of you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'll scroll through a couple of the. Yeah, this is Ohio Pile and all that. But yeah, yeah, we could still chat over top of this. So you were saying you did the Gap Trail. So have you done any overnighters since then?
Yeah, we did New York to Philly,
Oh,
which was an organized ride. Somebody actually, I think of the chat, I just got it back up and running, mentioned the East Coast Greenway. So I did a fundraiser with for them. They do a ride that's New York to Philly. So you ride that from
oh
New
yeah.
York to,
Aaron
and
sent
you
that to
camp.
me. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know if I'd recommend it. The ride itself is fine enough. The first half of it is a lot of just like weird routing through urban areas, like maybe cool urban areas. It's just like random roads that they had to string together to get you from A to B. The East Coast Greenway in New Jersey is very underdeveloped. There's not a lot of green space where they're trying to get to, or where they're coming in from New York, rather. But so I did that. I mean, my first overnighter was actually Nutmeg the other year. I was not aware that that was a thing you could do, is strap all your stuff to your bike and um, go camping. And I just done my first backpacking trip a little bit before that on the Appalachian Trail, so I was like very ready to do that. Um, and yeah, Nutmeg my first year was my first time trying hammock camping. But I'll be very honest. I have not. My goal this year is to do more of that, even if it's smaller and local. Just get more into like bike camping.
That was my thing last summer. It was to be like, even if we just have a few hours, let's get somewhere. Like, and we started
Yeah.
exploring the eastern half of Ohio, which, like, I know Youngstown. Like, my old drummer was from Youngstown, but and we had gone on a couple hikes out there. But we just started planning routes out through the country and finding like state parks we had never been to, and just even doing overnighters. And it was like, it's just great, I mean, just load up your bike,
Yeah.
go out, have a fire, have some beers, see different spots of your area you've never seen before. So,
I gotta wait for my son to be a little bit older, hopefully, and I can get him into it. But it's like for anybody that has kids out there knows, like you can hope and dream that your kids are going to get into something, but by simply doing that, he's not going to, or she's not going to. So I really just hope I can get him into it so I can do that, because that's the hard part is to take a weekend out and do that is kind of selfish in that way in some
yeah.
regards. So like I have to really pick and choose when I do it. For the next few years, right? And then once he's got his own stuff going on, and once he can, hang out, I'm sure he'll be thrilled that I'm not there for a weekend. But in the meantime,
Yeah. Yeah, sixes,
I'll be
yeah.
there.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Eastern Greenway, it was interesting you were talking about this. So I did watch who I brought up earlier. Terry Berenson did that route. But Erin brought up the ride you did, the organized one, and she was like, we should go do this when it's not the organized one, like not the fundraiser one.
Yeah.
But then
All
I,
those roads, I was very happy it was organized and they had people stopping traffic, because there's some
mm,
dicey roads that you can be on the side of without protection.
that still exists a little bit with like talking about the Empire Trail. So we only did me large and Aaron did Buffalo to Rochester and back, which was kind of crazy because we did double centuries. still had a good time. And Buffalo and
Yep.
Rochester are both cities that I really dig. But there's there's still like road routing there, and then I think once you so it's east west, so it's basically Buffalo to Albany, and then if you go
Mhm.
south, from what I've read, the New York Times did this great multimedia piece on it, but there's still roads involved in that as well.
Yep.
It seems like it's not quite as sketchy of roads as the Eastern Greenway still has, though. So,
Yeah. I mean, you go over some cool bridges and things like that, which is kind of worth going through. Like the Bayonne Bridge is a really cool bridge to ride over, and so is the Goethals. But yeah, then like you're just dumped into some place like Edison where there's you're just in the middle of these like really shitty mid-sized highways that you're just riding on the side of,
uh,
which is you know unfortunate. It was nice with them because they had like police like stopping busy intersections, things like that for you, so you didn't have to worry about it as much. When you're riding with 50 people, it's a little bit easier to. Cars are going to move out of the way. They're not. Nobody's going to like sit there and like ram through 50 people, right? So,
yeah.
riding in bigger groups through that area was helpful. So, I would say actually almost the if you're going to do it, the organized ride would be the way. The only problem is the organized ride is a pretty hefty fundraising and dollar to do it. So,
Ah,
I think it's like $600 in fundraising and a $300 entry includes camping, but it's a steep thing.
yeah, it's not a your everyday anyone go out there and yeah, we have that here too with our towpath trail, which follows the canal that used to run from Cleveland down to the Ohio River, and they have their century ride, but it's a
Yeah.
$1,000 price point. I photograph it,
So are
so
you along the Erie Canal towpath thing?
what's that?
Are you along the Erie Canal towpath, or how close is that to you guys?
So we're the Ohio and Erie Canal, so
Ah,
Cleveland to
okay.
Portsmouth, Ohio, like the tip of Ohio. The Erie Canal, we drove out to Buffalo, which Buffalo is 2.5 hours from here, maybe a little more. Maybe Large or someone would remember, but yeah. Well, even when we were in Syracuse, that's where we stayed on our way to Nutmeg. We rode like you could see where the Erie Canal is on the Empire Trail, Erie Canal Trail,
Mhm.
goes through the city there. It's not even on a separated bike path. But yeah, so the distinction is there's the Erie Canal, where Ohio and Erie Canal is a totally different thing. It's north south. I mean,
Yeah.
all part of the same canal system back in the day. To get goods around. But yeah, and so like where that goes to the Cuyahoga Valley is one of the most beautiful parts of it. Really pretty. It's a national park now. So between Akron and Cleveland, the valley is almost all national park. So like urban national park. But
Because some of the trail that I see you riding, like around here, the rail trail is very developed, so it's not that fun. Where I've seen some of your more gravelly rides through, it look like some sort of trail like that. Definitely looks more interesting to ride.
yeah, it's a mix. So I'm lucky. I live right by three trails. Two are rail trails, and one is a canal trail. And the canal one's the most interesting one. It's because it's well, I guess it's just been abandoned way long. Like the canal has been less functioning, so it's way more overgrown and way more woodsy. Some of the other stuff we're riding is just poaching old train right of ways and stuff like that, and they're not official at all and stuff like that. So mixed bag. Yeah, you can ride and then there's said the like you were saying how you rented a car. We do the Ohio to Erie, and that's not. It's a string of bike trails, and there's some roads involved, but it's between Cleveland and Cincinnati. And we do the same thing. We'll like ride one way and then rent a big truck, throw the bikes in the back, and drive back home.
Yeah,
You know, there's
yeah. I was like, I convinced my wife to come down and hang out in DC with us for the weekend and then drive us back. So like that's how we got back.
oh
I forgot to
nice.
mention that.
We had the
Yeah.
mechanic at Dirty River this year because you couldn't rent anything. Like how rental
Oh yeah.
places were like through the roof. So our friend
Mhm.
Yonda, he actually drove us all the way down to Cincinnati, which is great because then we just
Oh,
rode home. So yeah,
I've seen his name pop up on the chat. He works at Dirty River also.
yeah, he's a mechanic there now, and yeah, we
Cool.
had him. He was like, "I'll take you guys down." He dropped us off in Cincinnati on a rainy morning, and then it was like 5 days to get back to Akron. So it was great. But
Nice.
see what else. See if we have any comments in here.
I don't know if Pudgy was asking that to me, something about Syracuse highway riding. I've never ridden in Syracuse, so I don't
I think he's making
can't
fun of
speak.
me.
Oh,
I accidentally
oh, that building. I remember. Yeah, you guys showed that ride that you guys did.
Yeah, I just typed in a Strava route and I'm like put it on my Wahoo. I'm like, oh, let's do this around this lake here in Syracuse. And then there was like a pinch point where like all the central interchanges in Syracuse came together and there was no good way to do it and we almost actually accidentally went up a freeway ramp and it got real sketchy there. So
um, yeah, no, I guess I could throw up a couple other pictures of like local stuff around here. Just some
yeah.
cool photos.
Uh,
Were
Rusty said, speaking of Ohio, how long till the Amtrak line is done between Cleveland and Cincy? Oh man, our state is so backwards. It'll be forever. We have a very right wing state. I'm gonna.
so actually, I mean, New Jersey overall is a left wing state, but my area is very red. We're because of rural, it's mostly like guns and hunters and stuff like that. So it's a lot of red stuff. Highbridge slowly changing. We've had like the first Democratic Party mayor in like 30 years or something like that recently. So
I'm the
we're in
opposite.
the
My
same boat.
Akron and Cleveland and Youngstown were very liberal. They're like Rust Belt and all that. But we also
They're
live in.
like changing.
Yeah, our state is also super gerrymandered. So
Mm.
it's like it comes. There's like they have a in the like Ohio's like government in Columbus is super right wing because they have it so gerrymandered that to win in your district you have to out crazy, you have to out like have to out Trump the other person. To be honest, the state has gone for Trump, but it's like 51 or 52%, so it's a very divided state. But the government is off the charts right wing because of the gerrymandering. So it's a
Yeah.
split state, so it's not a hardcore red state, but uh, the government is
Yeah,
very conservative.
you're always the ones that everybody has to stay up late to see who won it.
Yeah, 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 and then it's gonna go to court and everything else. So, what when you show some photos, do you mind chatting for a second and what you're talking about?
Yeah,
I'm gonna run to the bathroom.
yeah. Is it if people can see this? So this is a
It's all
really
up, yeah.
cool. Can they see it? Yeah, cool. So this is we call it the arches, but this is I don't know. I've never really seen like a tunnel like this where so they built like two little sections, one for the river, one for the cars. But there was actually an Ariana Grande scene that was filmed in this tunnel. I forget what the name of the music video was for. It was a big deal in town. They just shut down the roads for Ariana Grande to come through. This was a ride that we did here. So we're talking about the East Coast Greenway. This was the start of that ride. So this was a really cool spot in Liberty State Park where you had a really nice view of the skyline. So some good pictures. That's Nicole there. She runs our local coffee. She'd actually really not ridden a bike at all before this. She decided a couple, like 2 months, not even before the ride, that she wanted to do this ride with us because it's something she's always wanted to do, to like ride from one state to another. So she trained her ass off and was able to successfully do the 120 miles, which is awesome. Super proud of her, and she owns an amazing coffee shop. So we haven't really talked about coffee outside, but so she had started doing the ride with us and was like, oh, I want to sponsor this. I want to give you guys AeroPresses and beans and whatever I could do to help out with this. And she's been super supportive. We got some hats made for her. She's just a super supportive person for us. But this is, I thought, was a neat little shot. Let me see what else I got. In terms of, I just tried to download a few things before we started. I think this is might be choppy, but like this is one of the cooler bridges. I don't know if you remember this on the Gap. Nope, it doesn't want to open. Oh, there we go. This is, I think, the highest bridge I've ever been on. Like, I don't know. Even if it's choppy, you can still tell. Like, that is.
Oh wait, that's
Do you
not.
remember this one?
It's not popping up. I'm still on the arched bridge, the stone bridge.
What is it? Oh, it's still the Sean Bridge.
Yeah,
Let me see if I can reshare it.
your
Oh, yeah,
blue.
it is. Bummer. Sorry about that.
Yeah, your blue thumbnail's still. Oh wait, here we go. I think it's popping up now.
Yes, that did.
Oh, there we go.
So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so it might be choppy because of the thing, but oh, you remember this bridge? This was like, I feel like
Oh yeah.
200 feet in the air or something like that. That was insane.
Yeah, we definitely stopped to take photos here.
Yeah. It was so windy. I just wanted to get the hell off this bridge. Let me honest. Let's see if I can find. So I don't know if this was coming through then before, but I'll share it again. So you're saying about the stop that. The East Coast Greenway ride. So this is where the start of that ride is.
Ah, okay. Yeah. No.
It's Liberty State Park, which is a great view of the skyline, and you could probably do like an 8 mile ride that's relatively flat in that park too, and it's all very scenic. There's a lot of things where like the backdrop is the Statue of Liberty and things like that.
So you're down by Hudson Yards here? Oh no, you're over in New Jersey. Okay, I see. Yeah.
We're on the New Jersey side, so this is across. So this is like where you would get the ferry to go to Liberty, Statue of Liberty from New Jersey
Okay, yeah.
in
Now I
Jersey
recognize.
City.
That's the big building you always see when you're down in Battery Park
Yeah.
in New York. That's right there on the
Yes,
left
yeah,
side.
it's the opposite side of it.
Yeah.
So this is Jersey City, which is a totally different place than it was 20 years ago. They've been doing a lot of to like Hoboken and that town to improve it. Did the arches, skyline.
For some reason, it makes a gap
I
between
don't
when you click on
know.
it. Yeah.
This is one of my favorite places locally to ride. We didn't really talk about this. Let me see if I can get it.
There we go.
So this is the Ken Lockwood Gorge, which is uh, very honestly one of my favorite places I've ever ridden, and it's half a mile from my house, so we ride it all the time. But where is it? Is it showing?
Yeah, it says gorge beginning. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like really right along this river, and it's just this gorgeous place. Like this is where a lot of people go and like will sit on the rocks and meditate and things like that. It's kind of there's a couple sections that get pretty gnarly really fast on it. That's a crew. That's John that we mentioned a few times. It's Tim, Brian, all part of our pretty core crew there. But it's right along the river, and it's like there's a lot of trails that go near the river, but like literally at this point, part of the problem is it gets washed out a lot, or rocks will come up out of the riverbed and onto it because when it floods, because it's literally you're right on this amazing section of the river. And so that's definitely one of our local highways to try to hit that through that in like every one of our rides. Any route we do, we try to get through there. Trying to see if there's anything else. This is another spot that you probably missed if you didn't do the CNO, which was the get it up there again. I forget if they call it the River Walk or the River Ride or something like that, but it's
Oh yeah. Where is this one?
this is
Oh, CNO. You said. Yeah.
yeah, this is as you're kind of coming into maybe you're 40-ish miles out of DC at this point, I think maybe. But this is on the CNO. Sorry, it's trying to. Let's see if I hit spacebar. Nope, that would be too easy. Hold on.
Yeah, I don't know why it doesn't let you scroll through them as you go, but
Now it's asking me, how did my stream go?
now Rick was saying you're lucky to have that so close.
And then stream it, but because it's a longer one, so this will work, hopefully. Come on.
There we go.
So you're like literally right along the Potomac here for quite a good section of it. It's really beautiful. I'm listening to Grant Peterson's Just Ride There, which I listened to for most of the way. Anytime we hit a boring, like I just need to like kill some time or I was tired of talking to my friend, we just would listen to this book on tape on my phone.
Really? Nice.
Also, so he was more of like a triathlon roadie guy. So for him, like this type of riding or like not trying to like kill yourself to ride really fast was new to him. So like where I was like, let's stop and have a few beers, or like, no, I just have this thing on my bike that's just for show. Like there's no, it's not making me faster. It's probably making me slower.
Yeah.
Was all, and it completely converted him by the end of this trip. To the point where he started like doing that. And actually, you know, I gave him my safety pizza at the end of the trip and was like as a reminder to like have type 1 fun
Yeah.
and not just type 2 fun. So that was really cool.
I do. It's funny the more, and I get into that too because I'm like now I always have like my Zeitgeist on my handlebars, a big bag, and it's like just bring the stuff that might make my trip more comfortable. Like even if it's just a day ride, like like last night we were sitting at the abandoned stadium, the Rubber Bowl that's on the east side of Akron. It's like, man, I had my down jacket to pull out. We had our beers. Like I had the camera I wanted to take photos with. It's like, yeah, we could ride fast if we want, but like it doesn't matter if we're losing, like you said, 5 watts here and there. It's like,
Yeah.
what does that matter? Like it doesn't matter.
Now I ride with the Jumbo Jammer pretty much as all the time on my bike, which is a big bag. It's not quite the Fabio's. I would be willing to bet that it probably carries just as much as a Fabio's chest. Maybe
Yeah.
some of the Ronnie fanboys will challenge me on that, but I think the Jumbo Jammer is an underrated handlebar bag. It really does carry a lot, and it's just constant. Like, here's a fun one to share. On the one route, I think we talked about the Capelong Creek ride, which is one of the rides we kind of do to prepare for Nutmeg. But I ate it real hard the one time and ended up with graphic warning here.
Oh, oh yeah.
Pretty bad. I had a full med kit in my Jumbo Jammer, so I was able to like bandage myself up after this ride. Everybody always made fun of me for carrying the Jumbo Jammer and always carrying a med kit. But after this one, when my leg was just like gushing blood, was able to patch myself up on the side of the trail. Nobody gave me shit about the Jumbo Jammer after that.
I'm surprised you weren't like, I need to roll these socks down. These cool socks are getting blood on them.
Yeah.
But
Those were actually the East Coast Greenway ride socks. Fun fact.
yeah, oh nice. The most expensive socks you own, then, yeah.
Theoretically, that's a good point. Yeah, so that was that's a scar that's still very much there.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, I think we're way after 11, but I'm happy to stay on if anybody has any questions. I lost my computer on the side died. I don't know what's going on with it, but
Oh,
I don't know if there's any questions.
the chat.
Yeah, I lost the live chat, but if there's any other questions, happy to answer.
Well, they're all saying nasty and ouch because they're looking at your cut. Yeah. Yeah, if you want to keep pulling up a couple photos, I
Sure.
cracked another beer, so
Okay. This was a cool ride we did. We did one. So my friend Megan, who it was definitely a person that helped me get into. So went to a shop around here called Marty's, which I go way out of my way to go to. It's like half an hour away. But to find like a kindred spirit at a bike shop that was somebody that was like into this type of cycling, and when we first started talking about the same type of bikes and things like that, and not just road bikes, like the other places at Bianchi place, the other place, a really hardcore mountain bike place. So to find that person that was like into the same type of stuff, would go out of my way to help her. So she came up with this route that this is actually an abandoned railroad tunnel called the Monunka-Chunk Tunnels. It was a really gnarly ride to get there. She's a very skilled cyclist, way more so than us. So her like level of like, oh, this is an easy ride out there. It was not an easy ride out there. We brought some of our crew that were like, just like very casual riders out, and the one girl ended up like completely like face planting into just a giant puddle. And it was like her like third or fourth ride ever. So
of course.
but the destination was well worth it. This is a really cool spot. Like those tunnels go for quite a bit. They built it into like a curve in the road. Totally abandoned. The trail out to it was technically a railroad, but it still has like railroad, like half buried railroad ties and things like that to get out there. It's a very, very cool like kind of destination. So we did a coffee outside here which was a lot of fun.
Did you guys go
And
into the
terrible.
tunnels?
Some people did. I did not. I didn't feel like getting smelly and wet and gross, but
Yeah.
yeah, there were people that went into them.
So it's dual train tunnels, so one in each direction must have been a busy line back in the day, I would guess.
I think it was actually somebody said it was a car tunnel. It actually was. The
Oh.
train didn't go through this part. The train ran alongside of it, um, but it was like to like it cut supposedly back in the day like half an hour off the trip because it went through the mountain instead of around the mountain or something
Hmm.
like that. There's a bunch of old stuff kind of out in that area. So like this is more Warren County. It's even a little further west than we are, and a little further north. So this is there's like an abandoned Lackawanna railroad line that they spent a ton of money building, but never actually launched. And supposedly they're bringing it back, or they want to improve it and turn it back into an active railway. So a friend of ours, Jeff, is trying. He rides this rail abandoned rail line all the time. He lives right near it, so he's trying to get a bunch of like organized rides in up there before they turn it back into a really
Hmm.
functioning railroad because we won't be able to ride it anymore. So that was a fun slash terrifying coffee outside.
A coffee outside that turned into like everybody was a little out of their element. Hmm.
Yeah, again, Megan's level of easy versus hard. I don't know if she's on here because, but yeah, she's definitely working on another level than most of us.
Hmm.
This is a cool one. We talked about the Jersey Shore a little bit. I, if you go down to Seaside Heights, which is where they filmed the Jersey Shore, you on Sunday mornings they will actually let bikes on the boardwalk. So I was able to do this ride here. And sorry, the video might be choppy, but
Yeah.
um, so like through the section with all like the kind of closed down, arcades and stuff like that around. Really, I wish there was less people there because it was kind of you had to weave in and out a lot, but it was
Yeah.
really surreal to be riding through this place that normally jam packed with people. When you're there, just kind of empty and sort of like ghost town feeling. Um, Later on, I don't know if this is the clip, but it gets closer to like the Ferris wheel and you kind of go underneath it and stuff.
The
It's really
amusement
cool.
park at the end there. Yeah.
Yeah,
See,
that's a casino here.
I still love this stuff because that's kind of how I grew up going to Ocean City. It was the boardwalk. It
Mhm.
was like, go get the funnel cake, people watch because back in the 80s when I was growing up, it was quite the scene, you know. There was like the drunken, we would go in June, so there were the drunken college kids. It would usually align with senior week. And it was just like, you're like a, I don't know, 10, 12, 14-year old watching all this stuff and just being like, holy hell, you know? Like,
Seaside Heights was the place where everybody would go after prom to go rent a shady motel and like get drunk. Um, After prom, that was like our spot. But this is where they filmed the Jersey Shore, so like that T-shirt stand that they worked at. If anybody watched that show, is like one of these little boarded up things along the side. And the
ah,
Jersey Shore is very notorious for very, very ill-tasted T-shirts.
yeah, yeah. I think all
But
boardwalks
yeah,
kind of are, but yeah,
yeah,
there's
probably.
the airbrushing. I always remember watching like people
Yeah,
getting the
yeah.
airbrush stuff done. Like,
But so we had this so close that we never really went to Maryland or to like some of the other beach towns because like this is an hour and a half from where I grew up.
so
This is where we go.
some of our jokes on this stream that go back to me and Pudgy, the virtual guys night out VGNO, the Blue Moon. Somehow we got on this topic of Rehoboth Beach, where I went as a kid. We went there once from Maryland and boardwalk like this, and we walked by this one bar called the Blue Moon, and it was packed. And like there were people out on the patio all around, and then like one of my older cousins was like, everybody, it's all dudes, and my dad said maybe it's guys' night out, and there's no such, as you know, there's no such thing as, I mean, there is guys' night out, and Pudgy said, well, this is kind of like virtual guys' night out because there's like four of us in this live stream before anyone watched it. But so that's where all those jokes came from. It was like clearly a gay bar. And then so we started searching around on the maps and I'm like, it's still there. And there just happened to be someone on the stream who knew Rehoboth and was like, oh yeah, Blue Moon, it's still there. Like scroll over a little to the left. And so the whole VGNO virtual guys night out comes from
Gotcha.
these kind of towns and a just a random night out.
Yeah.
when I was
So I
talking.
mean, to interview the interviewer, so like what got you to start doing these live streams? Because I think it's such a great idea, and not enough people do this sort of thing. It's been fun to have like a, especially over the winter, and as riding slows down, to have like another community of like people to like just shoot the shit with.
It was two things. It was one, the guy I mentioned, Terry Berenson, was doing he called
Mhm.
it the morning routine. He was streaming almost every day when New York was in true lockdown, and he was
Got it.
basically just chatting. And it was like I was trying to work on my computer, but I would have it on the TV, and I'd have my phone with the
Mhm.
chat. And there's some people who still tune in the stream who found it. We became friends because of that. But then I
Got
was
it.
like, he had mentioned on one of his live streams how he had started to run streams remotely for people. And so, as a photographer, videographer, I'm like, how long is this going to last? I should learn how to do this. And so then
Hmm.
I learned about OBS and stuff like that. And then I thought, I'm going to learn how to do this. And like the first couple times I did it, the Tour de France was still going on. And I'm like, well, I could just talk about bike racing and I'll just throw my opinion out there to nobody. And then I kind of like, it was summer and it was nice, so I was riding. And then in the fall, when the time changed, I started doing it more and more. And like Pudgy was always jumping in, chatting. A couple other people like started jumping in. And then like all of a sudden we're nerding about bikes. We're pulling up photos, with the Discord. Like other people started showing their bike photos. And I'm like, that was a lot of fun. And then so it just, yeah, it took on a life of its own. So it
Yeah.
wasn't
Oh, I mean, I wish
totally
I knew about it.
unintentional.
It's been a
Yeah.
really cool thing to just kind of be a part of. And thanks again for inviting me to be on this. This is the first time I've gotten to do something like this. And I had to do media training all day, just get ready for it, make sure I didn't say anything stupid. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Well, man, if I never watch him back. I don't even want to know what I say after 10 o'clock. But yeah.
So that, like watching live streams, I don't know what the analogy is, but there's just like no point to it. You know what I mean? If you're not
Yeah.
there, if you're not in chat, um, it's not a thing. But thanks for doing these. I just really think they're awesome and a great idea.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on. I think it's like I said, it's more fun to do it this way. Like, and that's what I got. I learned that you could like do the overlays and all that. Then last year when I was like, well, I think I'm tapped out about everything I could say about bikes, and then I was like, oh, guests. Like that would be the like some have someone else like say what. And this
Yeah,
summer, then a lot of people would stop by, and we would just like they would sit here next to me before we went into Omicron and everything. But yeah,
yeah,
so
yeah. I mean, somebody else I would recommend reaching out to is I don't know if you know Helmet Kids, but so he's always got some video that he's where he does like a little bit more. He doesn't put out very often, but when he does, they're very high quality, like very edited, stylized videos. So I don't know, maybe next time he has a new video come out, like it'd be cool to maybe do like a premiere on here or something like that.
yeah.
And he can like talk about it or show behind the scenes footage and like the stuff that's still on the cutting room floor. That like that'd be cool.
Yeah, I saw who would a couple of the he was riding right around us and I didn't know him at the time, but I think Pudgy kind of pointed him out and then I've gone back and watched his nutmeg videos. I also when you said when you when you said he doesn't put out very often, I wanted to make like a Rodney Dangerfield joke and I want to be like sounds like my wife. But
I know. Love Rodney Dangerfield, king of misdirection, the best.
uh let's see. Oh yeah, they're complimenting you on community,
Oh,
and they're saying community of nerds. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that's what Pudgy said. Tim wanted to learn how to live stream, and now he's stuck with them. Yeah. So,
Well,
should we?
yeah.
Do you want to wrap it up, or do you want to pull up another photo or two?
Let's see if I got anything worth sharing. I don't want to drag too on. Oh, I will say, Capelong is worth showing. That's a really cool trail. It's near us. This is so the one where this was the ride where that scar is from.
Everyone gets a little harder.
Um, I might have to cut into it a little bit. So it's pretty. It's a lot of rocks, a lot of ruts,
Oh yeah.
thing, but it's right along the river, gorgeous scenery, a couple dicey spots, but again, it's nothing where you're gonna like fall off the side of a cliff. Um, the worst you're falling is maybe 5 feet over the side. But so I think the GoPro battery ran out like 2 minutes before I took that spill. I really would have liked to have it. This is
Oh,
kind of
really?
cool. Yeah. It's kind of, so this was actually we did this ride right after Ida, and we John and I pre-wrote it, and I gave him shit about falling. And then that was right before that. It was my comeuppance for making fun of him for falling when I got that huge scar. But it's kind of cool. So this whole area here kind of got like washed out from
We got the
Ida.
tires to do it. We don't.
So we had to do a little hike and bike through this little mini river that got cut through.
We're probably gonna walk this.
The one person on a mountain bike decided to try it, but okay.
Yeah, instant karma is the word you were looking for.
Yeah, very much so. But yeah, it's cool, kind of like I think somebody said on this ride. So you keep kind of hitting between these roads, and it gets progressively harder as you go. So like the beginning is fairly tame, but every time you hit a road, it's like you beat the level, and then as you get ready to go to the next section, the next section is progressively harder and sketchier. So it's like, how far can you go?
You got to hit the final boss at some point.
Yeah, exactly, and that's where I died apparently on that ride. Didn't make it past the boss. Had to continue.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's all I got.
Brian DeMello said, "Great stream, guys."
Oh.
So
Brian was on that ride. I didn't realize he was on there. Brian was one of the originators, so he was one of the first Night Moves guys.
Oh,
He's,
nice.
Actually, I think Brian might have technically started. He might have been the one that suggested, "Hey, let's just ride at night," which started Night Moves, which then started Party Size. So, what's up, Brian? Thanks for coming on.
Yeah. Well, someone said phrasing because yeah. um, Chris said, "Thanks for the company as I wrench on his Trek 800." He said he loves the East Coast. So Blackball, he's in Toronto. He said learned a lot tonight. Great show. So yeah, we did all right.
Awesome. Yeah, go Pudgy saying the GoPro battery. I've had the worst luck with this GoPro. I'm very close to switching. But
Which GoPro are you running?
9, maybe the 10.
Get
It's
the
worth
10.
it. I don't know.
So far, I'm only 2 weeks in. It hasn't glitched out on me once yet, and same batteries. But I'm kind of
Yeah.
annoyed because I bought since I'm a subscriber to their service, I bought the kit which came with two. Because I've
Mm-hmm.
watched a couple tests those new Enduro batteries are supposed to be
Individual batteries, yeah.
so much better, but now I'm like I have 7 that fit the 9 and the 8, so I'm like, do I? But they're not even that expensive. But I just carry
Mm-hmm.
a couple extra, and they're not that big. And like we said, we have bags for them. So
Yeah, I'm an idiot and only have the one, and then I tend to. I'm getting better at it, but I'm certainly not a videographer, so I have the tendency to like turn it on and like let it run, and then why did it die? Because it's been running for the last hour and a half straight. So I need to get better at that. I've started to, and I don't know if anybody's followed my Instagram. My videos are very slowly starting to get better. I'm slowly learning a little bit more about editing and how to do that, but that's certainly not my background or what I'm good at. So that's been another cool thing about kind of taking on party sizes, kind of being forced to learn that, forced to learn e-commerce, forced to learn social media, like things that you just don't keep up on, and it's an excuse to like try new things, and that's been one of the things I really like about doing the merch and stuff like that. And I think that's not that hard to do. You said hey, try it.
that's always been my YouTube. That was originally just my YouTube motivation was this is what I do for a living, and this is how I up my game is by like having personal work that keeps me engaged. And as I wanted to move in video, like getting faster at editing and Premiere was a huge motivation for doing any YouTube videos. But yeah, like what you were saying is like with my GoPro, I really like look for key moments. So I'm making clips with the camera. I'm not coming home with 2 hours of footage, which makes my editing to put out a
Yeah,
video a week, which was my goal when I started making this actually a cycling channel. The good thing about the 10 is when you hit that record button, it almost starts instantly. And like you were saying, to hit it again, you see that it shuts off, and it's so much faster than the 9. I did the same thing. There were so many times where I like something happened. I thought I recorded. I thought I turned it off, put it in my pocket, burned up a battery and a memory card. You know.
Yep. Black stuff
Yeah.
of your pocket.
Yep.
Rick asked what I do for a living. I do sales ops, which is, I think I talked about it one time in the chat, but like, if you know the software Salesforce, like that's my specialty. But I work for a software and technology company. And so what I do is I don't sell anything. I'm not a salesperson. I run all the stuff that the salespeople use to sell. So I do all their commissions, compensation, all the systems they use to try to sell better. I kind of hate that aspect of it because I really hate salesy stuff, but it's just something I fell into at some point, and what I do. So it's pretty boring. I'll be very honest, but it does teach me a lot of like how to like learn systems very quickly because I'm constantly having to adapt to new technologies or softwares that we want to start to use or implement into what we do.
Hmm. Yeah, that kind of, I mean, definitely sounds like important stuff, though. I mean, you need the people that are willing to adapt and are paying attention to the trends.
Yeah, I mean, it's critical. It's just it's boring. Like
Yeah.
it's the very much behind the scenes stuff that is not the glamour
Hmm.
or like things that people want to be doing. We pick up a lot of the stuff that the salespeople don't want to do.
Hmm. Yeah.
Oh, somebody needs Salesforce, then you're just not using it right. Salesforce is amazing.
So Rusty is in Arizona, and he's about to move back to Cleveland. I think within a couple of weeks now. So, yeah, yeah. It's funny because I've thought about this too. Like, I don't consider myself a marketer, but a lot of what I do for a living is marketing because
Mhm.
I work for design firms or They never want to call themselves small ones. Never want to call themselves marketing firms. They like communication firms. But what's the difference, right? But I'm just glad that I found a lot that work for non-for-profits. So like a lot of times I get to work for like groups that are like Child Guidance and Family Solutions, Reworks, which is the old Summit County Solid Waste Management District. So I've been pretty happy that I've been able to do a lot of not super corporate stuff, and I don't turn down the corporate gigs. I mean, there is stuff in my life I have turned down, but it's been few and far between,
Yeah.
which has been nice. So yeah, lucky.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we could sort of parlay this though into like figuring out some way to, I don't know, if the more people I talk to, the more people hate doing the things that I sort of get off on doing, like figuring out how to ship better or figuring out how to do that stuff. So maybe start to just, like there's all these little people like us that sell these things and do this stuff. Like maybe I could make it easier for everybody and have some sort of thing. And like that's what I could do. That would sort of be somewhat adjacent to like what my regular job is. Like I don't know. That would be the goal maybe eventually. But for right now, I'm just having fun doing party size. Like it's been honestly, I started this just to stop annoying my real friend. Not I say my real friends, but like my, the people from high school and college and like my coworkers that are followed my regular Instagram that were all like, shut up about bikes, dude.
Yeah.
And it turned out then into something where I get to do all this stuff and talk to you and like meet people and I shipped something to Australia this week. Like that was wild. This has grown far beyond where I ever thought it would be. It would just start off with some stickers and here we are. And I'm very grateful for that. And I appreciate everybody that's taken any sort of interest or like gone to my website or followed me or, I never thought this would get this far. So I really appreciate it.
The same. I was literally taking a picture of my bike downtown Akron at this one of the old canal locks, Lock 4, and it was the PR person or marketing person for United Way happened to walk up behind me, and she had hired me for a number of our local United Way gigs, and she was like, she just goes, "Don't you have enough pictures of your bicycle?" And that was like the moment where I was like, I need to split the Instagram account. Like I need to be like Fitzwater photo over here and what I've called now.
Cycles over there.
Yeah, you're. I was like, I mean, I turned around, and I laughed, and I was like, oh, never. But enough, definitely enough for you, the United Way lady. Yeah.
Putting piss off your friends is another thing to piss off your clients.
Yeah. Blackball said, Chris in Toronto said, we're all just moving widgets, which is definitely true. And so,
Yeah. My boss is constantly like, I'm like, you do realize I don't care about anything we're doing, right? Like I'm here, I do a good job at what you asked me to do, but like at the end of the day, if this company goes under, I'll find another job. Like I don't care about what we're doing here, which is shitty, but it's the reality of corporate life. Like we're one of a million different companies that do what we do. We go away, that the world doesn't change. You know what I mean? And we just have to be honest with ourselves about that.
Yeah, my girlfriend loves like Excel and like numbers and data, and she's always been able to like parlay that into working for nonprofit. Local food is her passion, so she's had a number of jobs that worked out. But her last one, it just turned out the people that were just nonprofits. Sometimes you get somebody you don't like who's running the show, and
Yeah.
she was able to find a better one to work for, and so she's happy. But for a while there, she was same thing. She was like, I could go do data driven work for anybody and make decent money. And she started to, seriously consider that. And then she got lucky that a not for profit that hired her and she's been able to like be copacetic with the people around her. It's working out, but they're letting her work for home and she's like thrilled to do these Excel sheets. I like run my business and I hate doing any kind of accounting, invoicing. She has actually had to make my Excel sheets so they're locked down because I kept ruining them. Like I would like copy and paste into them and stuff like that, and like she would be like, "Why'd you do that?" I'm like, "Cause I don't."
I'm an Excel guru at work also, so that I know.
So I.
But Wave accounting software is free and it's pretty good and takes a bit to get, but like so I will take the order from Big Cartel, copy it over, and then like create invoices there to then match everything up, and so I can tie everything to like back to the like actual account, so I can track nerd stuff, but like cost of goods sold versus this and that, and marketing, and like separate all that stuff. So when it comes to be tax time, I have all this stuff, and I can run reports and things like that. So like I said, these are the things that most other people hate doing. This is some of the things that like I find myself doing when I should be doing my real work because I enjoy doing this stuff because I'm a giant nerd. Aaron and I sound like we would get along.
Yeah, you would. If she was still in here, she'd be like hammering her keyboard right now. She's asleep. She goes to bed early, but yeah, yeah. I'm the opposite where it's like I don't care. I don't. She's I don't know until I do my taxes how much I made. Like I was talking to the guys who are my friends. They have a tattoo shop in this strip. One night I was sitting there with him at the bar, and he was like, "So how much do you put aside for each job for your taxes?" I was like, "Put aside?" I was like, "I hope I get a couple good jobs at the end of the year that cover my taxes." Like, I'm like, I'm the opposite. It's like I'm not total artist either, but it's just like I just want to do photography and videography, and I found a way to make it work. And I am just like revolving cash flow guy. Like, oh, this job pays for me to like I'm covered. I could buy this camera because like I don't buy stuff on credit either. But I'm like, I can't. And she's always like looking at what I'm doing, and she's like, oh man, I could like make this efficient. And it's like, oh, you could. Right. Like I have the drawer of I have manila envelopes with receipts. Like that's how I. And come April, it's a goddamn nightmare. Yeah.
I feel like maybe there's some opportunity out there to be like like crosses like the mega mall for like all the blue lug and all the other things like that, but like for people who are of our size, you know what I mean? So maybe that's where the future is going to lead me because I feel like that would be something I'd be interested in. But in the meantime, just building this community is enough.
Yeah, and it's great. I'm glad it led to this night. It's
Yep. And my laptop, I got up again, it died. But Pudgy mentioned that, like he posted, and then Miggy from Helmet Kids, I think, is how I actually finally then got reconnected with Pudgy a year later. But it's serendipity, so I think we were all destined to at some point become friends, and very much looking forward to hanging out with you all at Nutmeg now that we know each other a little bit better than we did last year.
Yeah. Maybe even this summer, if things aren't insane like they are now, there'd be a mutual point. A couple of us have talked about maybe trying to get out towards Philly way again, which wouldn't be too far from you.
No, definitely. If you're out in Philly, let me know because that's easy.
Awesome. Well, why don't we wrap it up with that? This is great. Yeah, this is great. Everyone is saying they enjoyed it too. So, yeah.
Thank you all.
Yeah, everyone have a good night. I don't know. I don't have any parting words. Just end it with that. See ya.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
All right.
Okay, this time I'm just kidding.
Fitzwater photo.